But I, you know, a lot of some of my friends were going there. And watching your siblings go there, you end up playing for the AAU basketball team that's beating there.
You play sports?
Played soccer, basketball.
Someone who's down
Wow, okay.
finish courses.
This is their copy, right? I can look at
That's exactly right. So anyway, we got three names.
Read it.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. One what?
All right, thanks, Rich.
Yeah, Kareem is pretty good at that.
I don't need to go through my speech again, do I? The whole council is here.
No. Oliver might ask, I don't know. You got 4 minutes.
So, I'm doing this right. I do this.
Yep. Somebody.
So I have to, by the way, I have to shut down, go through 2 or 3 steps to get there. Does it show us anywhere here that says it's on?
I feel like you and I should be playing a little football, paper football game.
So what were you
I can sit this here. Of course, I get it from
I
my.
wanted to ask you, and then
For what?
the hour vacation.
I don't know, I gave it to Gavin. It doesn't say what they have to base the decision on. It gives, the statute gives 4 reasons somebody can object to it. One, basically, it's inconvenient.
It sells, right? It sells, I see.
I will get that to you tomorrow. Okay?
No priority. I'm just curious.
No, that's fine. Make a note to do that.
It's already synced.
No, that's.
Okay, but there's a way that you sync this to this, so like our calendar. Yeah, that, I want to do that. Should we just get that? So we can build that there, so
I want to sit down and talk to you about it. Maybe next week.
I'm not going to use it. It's in my head.
I'm using it as my main computer.
Well, you are.
That's my
Change in the order.
Yeah.
Yeah, your case is set up right.
Here's what I did.
The housing, I talked to Karen.
Oh, we're changing it? I didn't.
2 minutes.
That was a nice change.
Uh-oh, thank you.
I'm going to take a nap.
I know, that's the only thing. It makes you, I know, right?
So he'll be a substitute.
I think we're increasing the ordinance to 100,000.
Okay.
So I did letters real quick. I'll
Okay.
keep a couple of these for us, but this is the new substitute. There's like 12 copies of it, and here's the new letter.
Okay.
So hope that will work.
Thanks, John.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, you can wait till it's time for them to come up, I guess. Give that to, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you want a copy? Yeah. Yeah, just sit it right here. And then when they come up, then we can pass them out.
Switching seats.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Think all the way through?
I'm good, thank you, Graham.
Good?
Yes. I'm good and stuff too. I feel like I'm about to bust. This is probably wrong. Hi, John. This is yours.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have to change that in the title and
Yes.
You guys ready? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we are.
Good evening. Please rise. The Monday, July 24th, 2017 Common Council meeting is now in session. The invocation is by Deacon John Tugman, Holy Cross Catholic Church. Thank you, sir, for coming.
God of all creation, source of life itself, creator of all that exists, we believe that your love for us is real and present and personal, and that the matters to be discussed here tonight do, in fact, concern you. Accordingly, we take this moment to ask for your guidance. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to reflect it in our discussions and decisions. You desire justice for all. Therefore, enable us to uphold the rights of all our citizens. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance, nor corrupted by fear or favor. And may we always temper justice with love and mercy, so that decisions made here will be more like yours. May your help, O God, be with us now and remain with us throughout. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. If you would, please turn your cell phones to silent. Ms. Fowler, roll call.
Councilmember Preston?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Councilmember Broughton? Excused. Councilmember Varner?
Present.
Vice President Davis?
Oh, here.
Councilmember Vorty?
Present.
Councilmember Furlick?
Here.
Councilmember White?
Present.
President Scott?
Present.
8 present.
Thank you. Report on subcommittee minutes, please.
Report on subcommittee of minutes. The council has inspected the minutes of the June 26th meeting of the council and found them to be correct, therefore we approve.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Before we get to special business, get two things. Boy Scout Troop 111 is with us. Gentlemen, please stand up. Thank you for coming. You will see democracy at hand. If anybody's here for Resolution 1741 regarding climate change, that is continued indefinitely. With that, Ms. Fowler, would you give reading to 1743?
1743, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, celebrating St. Joseph High School's Class 3A State Baseball Championship.
Our presenter will be our president, Tim Scott, and so we will hear from him and proceed.
Baseball coach here? Come on up, coach. You
All
got a
right.
captain with you?
Seniors are right now.
Seniors, come on up, every one of them. Line up, guys.
Line up. Better.
Face that way. Those are the important people.
Pleasure.
Who's the one making the decision?
All right. You may proceed.
My name is Tim Scott, 711 Forest Avenue. I'm presenter tonight, City of South Bend. Resolution 4653-17. A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, celebrating St. Joseph High School's Class 3A State Baseball Championship. I was a 3A guy in Missouri. Whereas South Bend St. Joseph High School Indians have a long and storied tradition of, among other things, athletic excellence, which brings recognition not only to the school but also to the City of South Bend. And whereas the tradition includes 22 sport programs which, before recently completed baseball season, captured 16 Northern Indiana Conference League titles, 146 Indiana High School Athletic Association sectional titles, 64 IHSAA regional titles, 23 IHSAA semi-state titles, 15 IHSAA runner-up titles, and 9 state championship titles, and 9 individual IHSAA championship titles. Whereas the 2017 St. Joseph baseball team was coached by John Gump, right?
Correct.
There you go. Who was named by the South Bend Tribune as Indiana Coach of the Year. And whereas baseball team began the season with 16-game winning streak and finished the season with a 25-4 record.
Wow.
Whereas those 25 wins include sectional championship, the school's first ever baseball regional and semi-state championships. And whereas the season ended with a 4-0 shutout victory over Jasper High School in the IHSAA 3A state championship. And whereas in winning the state championship, the team overcame the breakdown on the team bus on the way to the championship game. Parents might want to pony up a little more. Aided by great team chemistry, outstanding defense, and a lucky rock. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, as follows. Section 1. The South Bend Common Council proudly recognizes the 2017 St. Joseph High School Indian baseball team for adding its athletic tradition and bringing the recognition of the South Bend community. 2. The Common Council wishes the players, the coach, and continued success in their endeavors in the years to come. And Section 3, the resolution shall be in full force and effect from this and after its adoption by the Common Council and approval by the mayor. Part of my presentation is going to be the coach. Coach, if you want to say something?
Well, I just...
Name and address first. We're on the record.
Name is John Gump, head baseball coach at St. Joe. I just thank you for bringing us here this evening, and I just want to thank my players, my other coaches as well. What a tremendous year we had. Had a lot of fun. Like it said in here, the chemistry is what I think really did it for us. I think in the years that I've been at St. Joe, we've probably had better teams, but as a group, this has definitely been top, and they proved it. And congratulations to them. And again, thank you, and thank you to Susan Richter and Debbie Brown, our athletic director, for all of the support they give us. And it's pretty cool that we were able to do this twice at St. Joe from a northern school with our women's basketball winning a state championship as well. But again, thank you for having us here this evening.
Coach, recognize your seniors. Who are they?
I got J.R. Haley here. Raise your hand, J.R. Tony Carmola, Tyler Cleva, and Jacob Hoover, and Andy Migas. And we are missing one, Corey Incadella, who's not able to be here with us tonight. But like I said, you asked for the captains. I've never had captains. I believe the seniors should lead the team, and they completely led this team this year. So thank you again, guys.
All right.
Vice President,
Can we get some of the captains?
there are no captains.
One of the seniors.
Anyone of the seniors want to say
Yeah, one of the seniors.
Tyler?
Oh, not gonna step up to the plate, huh? All right, we'll start off from our second district and work our way around.
Just want to say congratulations. As you know, what's happening here tonight is this is going down in the records for South Bend. The city of South Bend forever and ever will honor and recognize you for your hard work, your dedication. Congratulations. Way to go.
Congratulations, especially on all the hard work it must have taken to get where you are, and thank you for representing the community so well.
Yeah, if you folks will take your dedication, your hard work, and apply it to everything else in your life going forward, whether it's school or work, you'll have a bright future. And while things don't always work out with the state championship or the perfect solution, you'll know that you've given it your best. So keep it up, and congratulations.
John?
As a St. Joe Indian myself, back when it was a much smaller tribe. Anyway, offer congratulations to the players, the coaches, and especially the parents whose support a lot of this wouldn't happen. So thanks very much to everyone.
Speaking about the parents, before we go to could all parents who are here tonight, for the can I please stand? Any other parents? Any other supporters from St. Joe? All right, let's give them a big hand. Thank you. Councilman Furley.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Congratulations to the team. Thank the parents and the teachers and everyone from St. Joe High School that has had opportunity to really support each and every one of you to coach. Congratulations on being named as Coach of the Year for the state of Indiana. Is that correct? And so we thank you and we recognize you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to also say congratulations. When we were reading the tributes to you, it showed that you all have been consistent. And that's what I really appreciate, you know, consistency. Consistency in baseball, consistency in life is really something that I say is a honored trait for somebody to have. Because you can have a great 1 year and then forget about it, but to have a consistency throughout your experience has been something that I really was appreciative of to hear tonight. So congratulations to you, Coach, and to the team.
Thank you. Just from my own personal stuff, I'd like to say congratulations to you guys. Also, the rest of the team is here too.
All right.
Hey, you guys all stand up, please.
Where's everybody? All right.
All right.
So we'll see you guys here next year.
Yes, indeed.
Not to see you.
Yes.
Congrats. Thank you all.
All right. Now we'd like to hear from our public. We'd like to say, oh, hi, Joe. Welcome. We'd like to acknowledge the fact that Joe Roden has now arrived. We are honoring the St. Joe Champion Indians. Want to share a word?
I know, how exciting. Great job, fellas, and coaches and parents and the whole administration that supports you. Very proud of your terrific season and your big win downstate. Thanks for bringing it back home to us. We're really excited for you. Congratulations, seniors, on your next endeavors, and keep up the good work, the balance of the lineup. Great job.
All right, thank you. Now we'd like to hear from, open it for public. Anybody in public would like to speak in favor of this resolution? Come on, y'all. Somebody. I mean, this is a good
They're
resolution.
gushing with pride, but...
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
No worries. Jasmine Brown, 230 Sadie Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46628. I was here a couple of weeks ago with my daughter being honored, and anytime that we see our youth out here showing and paving the way for the city of South Bend says nothing but great things about our city and great things about what our coaches and what our parents are putting into our students. You guys are the wave of our future, and congratulations. I can't imagine what it feels like to have a state championship underneath your belt heading off into the next realm of your life. So congratulations and good luck on your future endeavors.
Okay. Anybody else would like to speak in favor? Share some words of encouragement? If not, anybody would like to strike out and say something negative? All right, seeing that, we close the public hearing.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So let's get, let's roll. Congratulations. Now they're going to be high. Ohio State University.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations. Congratulations. Hey there, how are you?
Big team.
Hi, Paula. Good to see you again. Hello. Congratulations. How are you? Good job. Terrific. Terrific, guys.
None of the teams had this many players.
Thanks, God, you guys. Great job. Good work. Hey, congratulations.
All right.
Yes, I don't think we've had Hi, John. Nice to meet you. Hello. Congratulations.
Y'all gotta stay for the rest of the meeting, don't you?
Excellent work.
I hope you dropped them one time. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right.
We'll Photoshop it.
That was nice.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue with the rest of the meeting. Report from city offices. We have Susanna Fritzberger in the chambers. Thank you for being here. I'll entertain a motion to rise and join the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank
No way.
The Committee of the Whole is now in session. This is the portion of the meeting where the full council meets as a committee. During each ordinance, the public will have an opportunity to either speak in favor or against. Your comments will be limited to 5 minutes per ordinance. With that, would the city clerk please read 3417?
3417, a public hearing on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 4640 South Michigan Street, 237, 305, and 313 Reeser Street, 4637, 4701, 4707, and vacant parcels south and adjacent to 4707 Fellow Street, Councilmanic District Number 5 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, Zoning Annexation Committee met this afternoon, and we bring this resolution, this bill to you with favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
David Stanton, Area Plan Commission, 11th floor of this building. The petitioner is requesting a zone change from GB General Business District and SF1 Single Family District and 2 Family District to CB Community Business District. On the site is a former retail space. To the north is a retail automotive establishment, zone GB, General Business District. Vacant lots, zoned CB, Community Business District. And home zone SF1, Single Family and 2 Family District. To the east across Fellow Street are homes zone SF1, Single Family and 2 Family District. To the south is the St. Joseph Valley Parkway. And to the west, across Michigan Street, is a retail complex, zone CB, Community Business District. And then this is just looking east from St. Joseph Valley Parkway at what is the current site. And I've been told that they're going to actually take down this site and reconstruct a new building on the site. And this is a view of the site looking north from St. Joseph Valley Parkway towards St. Joseph Street, where you'll access the site. These are the properties that are on Fellow Street that are being rezoned. This is looking north up Fellow Street from the overpass on across St. Joseph Valley Parkway. And then this is a view of it looking south towards the overpass from Fellow Street. The 4.15 acre site is part of the larger development to convert the retail structure adjacent to the lots currently being rezoned. A proposed 207,469 square foot retail store will be accessed by St. Joseph Street. The areas being zoned are primarily shown as retention areas on the proposed site plan. The remainder of the project area is already zoned CB Community Business District. This comes to you from the Area Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation. Rezoning this site to CB Community Business District will allow for the reuse of an existing commercial property in a manner consistent with the comprehensive plan. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions from council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone from the public? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, that's
This
right.
is the petitioner.
Rodney Weiken with Bernard Incorporated, 5101 Bernard Drive, Oakland, Wisconsin, 54703. We are in agreement with staff's recommendation for approval. This rezoning will help facilitate the construction of a new Menards Home Improvement Store, which will bring us up to our now prototypical standards. Larger store will help increase sales for this market.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions from council for the petitioner?
Could you,
Yes?
yes, could you review the dates, time frame that you're looking at for the public?
I don't believe a construction schedule is set yet. We typically start new store construction in the spring, so the earliest it would start is spring of 18. But that
Okay.
construction schedule hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
With that, thank you. We'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, back to the council. What's your pleasure?
Move to send this to the bill forward with a favorable recommendation.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 4017?
4017, public hearing on an ordinance initiated by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 21 of the South Bend Municipal Code, Articles 3, by adding mini self-storage, warehouse, internal access to permitted uses in CB Community Business District, CBD Central Business District, and GB General Business District, and establishing additional development standards for mini self-storage, warehouse, internal access, and adding a definition for mini self-storage, warehouse, internal access.
Is there a committee report?
Yes. The Zoning and Annexation Committee met, and we bring this to you with favorable recommendation also.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
Good evening, Angela Smith from the Area Plan Commission's offices located on the 11th floor of this building. Before you is a text amendment that adds a new use to the South Bend zoning ordinance. While we have accommodations for mini self-storage warehouse, most people think of the typical industrial type buildings with the large overhead doors that are constructed, newly constructed endeavors. What we have found in recent years, and we've had numerous inquiries about, is ways to convert old big box retail. This could be anything from a former Kmart site. It could be, we've seen other examples across the country where we've seen grocery stores or auto dealerships or any kind of large retail space where they have easy access. They're usually on public roads. They usually already have the heating and cooling all set up, large overhead doors for deliveries. It's a perfect setup for a mini warehouse on the inside. This use kind of accommodates that and keeps the retail appearance of the outward building so that it fits into the retail center that it's located in. Along with this, there are development standards related to that to kind of help maintain that retail setting, and a definition that accompanies this to differentiate between this and a typical self-storage warehouse. This text amendment comes to you from the Area Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation, updating the zoning ordinance to allow for the adaptive reuse of large vacant commercial structures for the creation of conveniently placed new storage facilities while maintaining the appearance of a retail center will promote stability and vibrancy of the commercial districts within the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And we'll have a quick word from co-sponsor Oliver Davis.
Again, we are glad to bring this to the council. We are glad the area plan has been able to continually look over our zoning laws and has requested that we consider this as a text amendment because I think this is really going to help you. We've already seen situations over in the 4th District when we had the old Target area, and now in the 6th District we had the old Kmart area, and the potentially of what may happen, we never know with the Menard situation. So we have to continually make sure that our zoning laws are in keeping with everything, which helps all of our development. And I'm glad to work along with Joe Broden with this and with Area Plan.
Great. Any questions for presenter or petitioner from council? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Michael DeVita, planner with the City Department of Community Investment offices on the 14th floor of this building. So as has been discussed, these changes would offer property owners an economically viable reuse of former big box and other large buildings. With the standards proposed, self-storage could be done in a combination with other uses in a way that's compatible with the respective zoning district. So the zoning classification will be preserved, but properties can move, convert to this or from this use more easily as the market dictates. So we believe this quick fix will help at least a couple of developers now and can be of further value as national retailing patterns continue to change over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else speaking in favor, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Any recommendation from the council?
I'd like to make a motion that Bill 40-17 is sent to the council with favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 4117?
4117, public hearing on an ordinance to vacate the following described property. The alley to be vacated is the first north-south alley east of William Street, Portage Avenue, from the south right-of-way of West Navarre Street to the north right-of-way of West Marion Street for a distance of approximately 410 feet and a width of 14 feet, being a said part of the city of South Bend, Indiana, Portage Township, St. Joseph County.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, the Public Works and Property Vacation Committee met this afternoon and sends this to full council with an unfavorable recommendation.
Is there a presenter?
My name is Paul Crowley. I'm an attorney representing Franklin Arello. Yielding to wise counsel, I'm going to ask to withdraw this petition.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the withdrawal?
So moved.
At the request of the petition. At the request of the petition.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
City Clerk, would you please read 4217?
4217, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city service operations in 2017 of $5 million from the Park Fund 201.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, the Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting on Bill 42-17. We send this bill to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a presenter?
John Murphy from the Department of Administration and Finance with offices on the 12th floor of this building. This bill is an appropriation of $5 million for improvements at Howard Park as part of the Regional Cities Grant Program. As you know, there are a number of grants throughout the area of northern Indiana. This is one of them. What we've done is set up a separate division within the Parks and Recreation Fund to keep these monies segregated so that they're only used for this purpose, and so that no personal property tax money will be used for this project. There's other funding that's part of the Howard Park, and that was talked about in the committee meeting. This is just to appropriate the $5 million from the Regional Cities Grant. The Executive Director of Benton Parks and Arts is here to discuss the project if you'd like, but that's my presentation.
Thank you so much. Is there anything anyone else would like to add to the presentation, or just answer questions? With that, are there any questions from council? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone from the public wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, back to the council. What's your pleasure?
Move to send, 4217 to full council favorable.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 4417?
4417, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city service operations in 2017 of $70,000 from the Department of Community Investment Operating Fund number 211.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, there is. The Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting on this bill. We send this bill to the full council with a favorable recommendation. I do believe that we will be receiving a substitute version, which we need to take action on.
Is there a motion to accept the substitute?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
John Murphy from the Department of Administration and Finance. The substitute bill increases the appropriation amount from $70,000 to $100,000 to appropriate money for a housing demand market study that would be funded out of the Department of Community Investment Operating Fund. We don't usually budget additional appropriations out of this fund, but over the years, the Department of Community Investment has been underspent some of the money, so we do have sufficient money to cover this appropriation without undue hardship in the fund. We ask for your approval from this ordinance.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Just thank you. Statements or just questions?
We'll hold time for comments after.
Yes. Question, the word up to is not in here. And I think I would feel more comfortable with that language. Is that a reasonable request to include, or is that assumed?
It is up to, but it's still.
I think that would be fine. I mean, appropriations are typically always up to, you can't spend over the appropriation. You can spend half.
But there's a wide range between, the initial estimates of 50,000 versus this 100. So I guess I want to bring that to the attention of the public.
The inclusion of the words up to in there.
Okay.
Sure. Is there would you make a motion? Just to include up to?
If now's the time, I'd prefer to do that.
Sure. So it sounds like there's a motion on the floor to eliminate the word of in the first sentence. Oh, that's not the actual bill.
Stand up to that.
The bill.
Oh, on the amount of the bill up to 100. Is that appropriate under fund, under section 1, just put up to $100,000?
Is that standard?
Or do you just want it in the cover letter? That it just
The cover letter.
That's not
Okay.
standard.
We could amend the cover letter and send it to the
Yeah.
city clerk.
That's fine.
Yep,
So
that's fine.
there's an amendment
And the
to
title.
eliminate the word of and include the word up to. Is there a second?
In the cover
The
letter.
title
the
is
cover
about
letter.
the title of the ordinance
Oh,
as
in
well,
the-
something.
In the title?
Oh,
So,
okay.
The title.
In the title and in the cover.
Okay, that's fine.
You got me?
is that the motion?
Yes, sir.
That cover. All my colleagues in the title and in the cover letter. A piece?
Sufficient. Yeah, that would be.
Cool.
Second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening for the second time tonight. Jasmine Brown, 230 Sadie Street. I'll say 46628, as in South Bend. I am in large favor of this amount, and I thank you for the increase up to $100,000. We need some serious investment into our parts of our community that have been maybe ignored or blighted for so long. This money allows for that process to begin. It's definitely a time for our northwest side, some of our southeast side regions to be looked at. And this money allows the people of the community to actually get a survey study done, to actually know what the needs of the full community are. I thank you for your efforts putting forth in this. Definitely looking forward for the next couple of years for us to see something happening in those areas, and this is the beginning. So thank you for the start.
Good evening, Carl Nichols, 2806 Lincoln Way West, South Bend, Indiana. Homeowner at 1530 College Street in South Bend as well. I stand to support this ordinance, hoping that the additional allotment to the fund would allow to help assist in the funding of a study that would allow community members to really speak to community members who have suffered the biggest blight from the 1,000 House in 1,000 Days initiative. Some of the communities seem to have been really torn apart by this initiative, and we need to hear from them. Any typical market study is going to cut off at a certain salary, and then we're going to miss a whole population of people we need to hear from in their housing needs as well. I have submitted for a funding request to Indianapolis for $20,000 to be able to send trained data collectors from the community into the community they live in to get that information from the people that the market study won't speak to. And I would ask that the city help support that initiative so we can expand it to all the impacted areas. Thank you.
Good evening.
Jose Arevalo, 105 East Jefferson Boulevard. I echo Carl Nichols' words just now. His office is a community wellness partners, and we formed a scientific survey with partnerships with Indiana University and Notre Dame. What we are looking for is for this funding request that is before us here is to include the status of the current housing situation in South Bend, especially in those areas that were most affected by the 1,000 houses in a 1,000 days demolition project. It's important to take into account existing homes, whether they are occupied or rental or vacant, or even buildings that are there now that are currently not used for housing. Also, this study should include vacant lots, because within those vacant lots is the plan to build some of the 100 houses and the 100 houses program that has been discussed over the past couple of months. It's important to include this because there's many houses that need a repair or rehabbing, and that's why we need to take into account the current housing stock. These families and these properties are the same properties that have sustained the city by paying property taxes through thick and thin over the past 5 decades, let's say, since Studebaker went bankrupt, and we've been declining in population since then. Now there's a little bit of recovery in that, but it's important to take into account those community members and neighbors and citizens of the city who have been supportive of the city, and I think it's time to give back. So this marketing study should include the survey that we have put together with Carl Nichols' office, and a variety of people have worked together very hard to do that. That's it. Thank you.
My name is Jordan Geiger. I'm at 61455 Jewett Lane at South Bend, Indiana, 46614. I just want to echo a lot of what Jose has already said. I think that it should include a community engagement component. We've had conversations, ongoing conversations with the city since last September about doing some kind of community needs assessment. And we've sort of assembled a team of folks in partnership with Carl Nichols. We have students from IUSB, students from Notre Dame, and we have a bunch of other folks, neighborhood folks, who want to be involved in going around doing the door-to-door survey work. I think that has to be part of it, because as we talk to a lot of residents in the area, they're concerned about the fact that we've had all these plans in place across the west side and different parts of the city, but they don't feel like they've really been engaged. Another part of that is holding focus groups and community-wide and citywide forums. I think those would be incredibly useful, just so that we understand the nuances of what these issues are and what the impact of this development might be. We can crunch numbers all day long, but that won't really tell you what real impact it will have on people's lives.
Thank you.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. I think this is a good idea. I think it's great to get some community members involved and some thinking minds, instead of just going to the normal everyday company that we spend $100,000 on doing a study. So I think the community involvement is a very important part, and I think the community feels that they have been lacking in input in a lot of these projects. So we've got a lot of neighborhoods here that need help, and I'm all for this if we're going to actually help the neighborhoods instead of concentrating on just the downtown area.
Seeing no one else in favor, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Sharon Benicki, 3822 Ford Street, South Bend. We have all these people on the city staff making six-figure digits a year that are so highly educated. Why do we have to keep paying people to tell us what everybody should already know? Why do we have to keep going out to the East Coast and bringing in these brainstorms? You've got community people that are willing to do it at a fraction of the cost. They're going to put in the legwork. They're going to get to the people that really need to be sought out, not your brain trust that's going to tell you what you want to hear. Keep the cost down, do the study, work with what you've got. Quit bringing in outside groups. Karima was just quoted last week in the paper. They did a study on parking tickets. Oops, they were wrong. She didn't increase her parking ticket fund. These people are going to tell you what you want to hear if you're paying the right price, and this city is going bankrupt fast. Quit spending and wasting the money. Thank you.
Senator Brown, 222 East Navarre Street, City, South Bend. I got a watchdog group called Citizens United, which we watch the different projects. I got mixed emotions. This is the motion problem I'm having with this. I think it's a good idea what you're doing, and I was all for it. I was on the finance committee trying to track the dollars. Now we got a survey committee coming into these houses. But the people that's really involved with this, it's a lot of transparency that's not, did not, we not got on that finance committee, was to track the dollars, making sure the money was going where it's supposed to go, and it was doing what it's supposed to be doing. I know this is going to be passed, but I'm going to still hang in there, and I want to make sure at the end of the day, this was done properly. Thank you for listening to me.
With that, the public portion is closed. Back to the council. What's your oh, I'm sorry. Back to the council. We had a comment from Ms. Williams-Preston.
Yes, I just want to thank the city administration. I feel as if, I mean, a lot has already been said by community members themselves in terms of, you know, just being able to engage and go through the process, and whether we agree or we disagree, I feel like, you know, coming back to the council and making that increase has really shown that we're ready to be responsive to what community needs and ready to listen. It just simply opens the door for more conversation about what's needed. So I want to thank Mr. Mueller and anyone else in DCI who helped, Controller, John Murphy, everyone. Thank you.
Any other comments at this time?
I'd also like to add my gratitude to the administration and to all the efforts that Ms. Regina Williams-Preston has put into this. I applaud her and her team, and I really look forward to us having both a outside viewpoint, but really come together from an inside viewpoint to take a look at both inside and outside how we can continually fix up our city. Because I do agree with the words of Dr. Bonner. This is not just the whole thing, you know. This is just that asset that we can look at it. So I'm for it.
Thank you. Is there a motion from council?
So moved.
Oh, I make a motion to send 4417 to the full council favorably.
Second.
All those in favor?
As amended.
Aye.
As amended, yeah.
As amended. Right. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. With that, I will entertain a motion to rise and resolve from the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
Full council is now back in session. Ms. Fowler, would you please give third reading to 3417?
3417, third reading on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 4640 South Michigan Street, 237, 305, and 313 Reeser Street, 4637, 4701, 4707, and vacant parcel south and adjacent to 4707 Fellow Street, Councilmanic District Number 5 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Move for the passage of Bill 34-17.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Broden?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. give third reading to 4017, please.
4017, third reading on an ordinance initiated by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, amending Chapter 21 of the South Bend Municipal Code, Article 3, by adding mini self-storage warehouse, internal access to permitted uses in CB Community Business District and CBD Community Business District and GB General Business District, and establishing additional development standards for mini self-storage warehouse internal access, and adding a definition for mini self-warehouse and internal access.
Motion for passage.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furley?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 4217, please.
(4217) Third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city service operations in 2017 of $5 million from the Park Fund 201.
Move for the passage of Bill 42-17.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furley?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 4417, please.
4417, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city service operations in 2017 of $70,000 from the Department of Community Investment Operating Fund 211. And I know this is amended.
Entertain a motion to amend as it was in the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Ms. Fowler?
Motion to adopt is amended.
Yep. Motion.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Move to resolutions. Resolutions. This is the portion of the Common Council where the Common Council hears bills filed as proposed resolutions. The title of each proposed resolution is read by the city clerk. A report from the committee chairperson of the standing committee which the bill was referred to, advisory review and recommendation is then given. If the proposed resolution is requesting a zoning special exception, a report from the building department will first be given, followed by the petitioner who is giving a formal presentation at the podium. If the proposed resolution is a tax abatement, a report from City Community Investment Department will be given by the petitioner, given the formal presentation at the podium. On all other proposed resolutions, the formal presentation by the petitioner will be given immediately after the committee chairperson's report, I apologize. Following the formal presentation, council members may ask preliminary questions only, with all other council comments being heard during the council portion. During the public portion, on each proposed resolution, members of the public are invited to address the council. Please give your name and address and comment on the bill. If you have questions, they will be addressed by the presenter during a rebuttal period. Each member of the public is limited to 5 minutes, with those speaking in favor going first, followed by the opposition, a 5-minute rebuttal period for the presenter of the bill. Now I ask the city clerk to please read the first resolution.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Is there, do you want to hear from our attorney his comment before now or after the reading?
After the reading.
Okay.
Ms. Fowler?
1737, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals for property located at 1502 West Dunham, South Bend, Indiana, 46619.
Thank you. With
Committee
that,
report?
yes, committee report.
The Zoning and Annexation Committee met this afternoon, and we bring this resolution to you with no recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer, would you please read your statement that you read earlier? And Ms. Fowler, if you can move the microphone a little bit closer, that'd be great.
Sure thing.
In ruling on an application for a special exception, Common Council is acting as a quasi-judicial board instead of a legislative board. Therefore, it's limited to specific criteria in determining whether the application or the petition should be granted. The 4 specific criteria are: 1, whether the proposed use will be injurious to public safety, comfort, community moral standards, convenience, or general welfare. 2, whether the proposed use will injure or adversely affect the use of the adjacent area or property values therein. 3, whether the proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district in which it is located and the land uses authorized therein. 4, whether the proposed use is compatible with the recommendations of the City of South Bend comprehensive plan. The council will consider only the record of proceedings before the Area Board of Zoning Appeal and any documents presented therein, or the record of proceedings in this public hearing and any documents presented, any and all documents requested by the council. The council will not consider any ex parte communications from any parties or remonstrators. The council has 60 days from the time the recommendation was issued by the Board of Zoning Appeals within which to rule. If it does not rule within 60 days, the petition is approved.
Questions?
Vice President Davis.
Yes, I believe the starting date for that 60 days was
July 5th. Correct.
So that gives us until, technically speaking, the beginning part of September, but given the fact that our last council meeting in August will be the one right before that would be August the 28th.
28th, correct.
The meeting after that would be September the 11th, which would be after that date. So
correct.
We're working on a time frame between now and August the 28th.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I think there's amendment.
Yes, we'd like to make an amendment to, I believe it's the first written commitment. Is that correct? Mr.
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
An amendment to the first written commitment to change the language to no music will be played, nor will there be any amplified sound emanating from or to the outside deck or anywhere outside the building premises.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're good? Report from the building department, please.
Good evening, Chuck Ulo, Building Commissioner with offices at 125 South Lafayette, City of South Bend. At the July 5th meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, a petition seeking a special exception to allow a tavern in an MU district and variance from the maximum allowable 3 feet height for a privacy fence to 7 feet and from the required 18 parking spaces to 0 was heard on property located at 1502 West Dunn, South Bend.
Thank you.
I can see with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Sir Presenter.
Do we have a chance to ask him any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
We'll hear from the presenter and then we'll go.
Okay, thank you.
Name and address, please.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is James A. Masters with the firm of Nemeth Feeney Masters in Kankakee, proudly located in downtown South Bend at 350 Columbia Street. I stand before you this evening to present the petition of Robert Berg for a special use exception for property of 1502 West Dunham, South Bend. There are a number of people here to support this petition. I'd like to ask those people who came tonight to support Mr. Berg's petition to please stand so you can be recognized by the council. Thank you. And when we conclude and you're called up to speak, why don't you line up here? They're going to ask you to sign in before you make your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Masters.
This special exception is requested to operate a tavern in what is now an MU mixed-use district. This is a small business. The inside capacity of the bar is 33 persons. With the deck, the total capacity is only 55. That's not at all large, especially when compared to a neighboring bar that has a large outdoor beer garden with tents and a stage with live music and bands every weekend. As one of the members of the ABZA observed when hearing this case, there are 3 other bars within walking distance of 1502 West Dunham. So far, most of what you have heard about this property and this business has been all one-sided. I know that some of you council members have been contacted personally by a person in the opposition. I can tell when someone's been contacted when they make a statement I know the opposition has made. Hopefully tonight you'll have the opportunity to hear from the owner and his supporters, and you will get a different perspective on this matter. The property at 1502 West Dunham has been used as a bar known as the Dunham Inn for over 50 years. In May 2004, there was a paper rezoning change by the Area Plan Commission that changed the zoning from C commercial to MU mixed use. That zoning change was not requested by the property owner. There was no consent to that zoning change. Yet the effect of that zoning change was to make the property a legal non-conforming use. Under the MU mixed use zoning requirements now in effect, a bar is a special use that requires approval of an exception to operate. So we're here tonight to ask for that special exception that brings the property into compliance with the MU zoning requirements. The only change in the operation of the bar that results from granting this special exception will be use of the deck at the back of the bar. There is a legal question whether the backyard of the bar had been used before the zoning change in 2004 that would allow the deck to be used now. When a petition like this is brought before the council, I recognize that your primary concern is the protection of the neighborhood. That's why Mr. Berg proposed a commitment restricting use of the deck and playing music outside. The most important result, if the special use is granted, is that there will be no music played outside of the building at any time, and the deck will not be used after 11 o'clock p.m. on any day. These commitments go beyond what is legally required. What any opponent of granting this special exception should realize is that if Mr. Berg prevails in the lawsuit with the city and proves that the deck is a permitted prior use, there will be no restrictions on the use of the deck other than other city ordinances. Mr. Berg offered the written commitments to address your and the public's concern about granting special exception. Now, there's been a lot of controversy about this particular piece of property. I can't remember in recent history when any bar or even any business in South Bend has occupied so much attention in the local media. I want you to take a look at a couple of things from Mr. Berg's perspective. When Mr. Berg acquired this property in 2014, he went to the city building department to obtain a permit to build the deck. Mr. Berg was told that no permit was required because no permit was required for a deck that was under 3 feet off the ground. After Mr. Berg built the deck and began using it and the neighbors started to complain, the city said the deck wasn't permitted. The building commissioner told you before at the committee meeting 2 weeks ago that that was a mistake to issue the permit for the deck. Yeah, but whose mistake? Mr. Berg applied and obtained a permit from the building department to replace the 6-foot fence on the side of the property along Harris Street that was in disrepair. After he replaced the fence, the building commissioner decided that the fence should only be 3 feet high, because what is the side of the yard, the building commissioner said, is the front yard. To make it even more difficult for Mr. Berg, the Alcoholic and Tobacco Commission regulations required the fence to be 7 feet above the ground because of the deck. So, Mr. Berg applied for the variance for the fence, and the ABZA approved that variance. Because of the complaints against the property, primarily from one neighbor, the property was labeled a chronic problem property. Now understand, under city rules, to be a chronic problem property, you don't have to be found guilty of anything. You don't have to be convicted of any violations. All you have to have is someone call and make a lot of complaints about you, regardless of whether they are valid. The complaining neighbor apparently knows that all it takes to get Mr. Berg's business in trouble with the city is just to keep calling the police and every other city department. In May of 2016, Mr. Berg signed a remediation agreement with the South Bend Police Department. And this was to address the citations that had been issued. Again, none of them ever reduced to any judgment or conviction. That agreement was in effect from May of 2016 through November of 2016. There were no additional violations during that time. The remediation agreement was satisfied in November of 2016. The effect of compliance with the remediation agreement was to have all prior citations rescinded. That remediation agreement specifically stated that Mr. Berg was allowed to have outside music on the deck until 11 o'clock p.m. so long as he gave notice to the neighbors and the volume of the music was within city decibel meter guidelines. The ink was not dry on that agreement before the city sued Mr. Berg for having music on the deck. So, we're here with this petition to try to resolve the problems in a way that address the neighbors' concerns and hopefully yours. As your council has told you, when the Common Council considers a special exception, your role is that of a Board of Zoning Appeals. You must determine if the statutory standards for granting a special exception will be met based on the evidence you hear. The offered commitments exceed any other legal requirements and are intended to appease any neighborhood concerns. These commitments offer protection to the surrounding neighbors. Now, you're going to hear from a number of supporters of Mr. Berg's petition. You'll also hear from an impassioned opponent. You know, I'm personally all in favor of people who come before a public body and speak out on matters that affect their lives and their property. I admire those people. I occasionally represent opposition in hearings just like this. But I would hope and I would expect that people who speak against this petition will present truthful facts, not make up statements, and be accurate in what they tell you. I'm sure you're going to hear tonight all about things that happened in 2014 and 2015. Now, granted, there may have been some mistakes along the way that got us to where we are now. Mr. Berg could and probably should have done some things differently when we first opened. But now the main argument of the opposition is that Mr. Berg should not be rewarded for this past conduct. Certainly none of you believe that. That argument has nothing to do with whether the 4 statutory criteria for granting a special exception are met. And that argument absolutely flies in the face of the legal requirement that you base your decision on the statutory criteria for granting a special exception. The Area Board of Zoning Appeals sent you the special use with a favorable recommendation. The staff of the Area Plan Commission also recommended approval. The ABZA found the special exception meets all the legal requirements for granting a special use. 1, the proposed use will not be injurious to the public health, safety, comfort, community moral standards, convenience, or other general welfare. The ABZA found that with the appropriate written commitments, the proposed use should not impact public health, safety, or general welfare of the community. The second standard, the special use will not injure or adversely affect the use of adjacent property or property values. The ABZA found that approval should not affect the use or value of adjacent properties, provided that the written commitments are fairly executed. The site has been a long-standing business in operation for many years. Number 3, the proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district in which it is located and the land use authorized therein. The ABZA found that the proposed use is located in an area with a mix of single-family, multifamily, and mixed uses. The use is consistent with the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood. And fourth, the proposed use is compatible with the recommendations of the City of South Bend Comprehensive Plan. The ABZA found that the proposed use is compatible with the future land use plan within City Plan from November of 2006, which identifies property between Harris Street and Walnut Street as low-density residential, high-density residential, and mixed use. Common Council likewise should determine that the statutory criteria for granting a special exception are met and approve the petition. If there are any questions, Mr. Berg or I will attempt to answer them. And before I leave here, Mr. Furlick, I didn't catch all of the amended language. Can you have somebody maybe slip me a copy of this so I can make sure I get it accurately before we leave tonight? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Right now, take questions from council for either Mr. Masters, Ms. Berg, or even the city and the building department.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Masters. Could you carefully describe how the arrangement of the agreement between you and your the person you're representing came to with the city, the agreement that you're talking about, the compromise there?
The remediation agreement?
Yes. Could you carefully describe how y'all came to that agreement in order for the both sides not to have this lawsuit continued in court?
Well, I can only tell you what I seem to understand, and that is that, you know, when people call the city and make complaints, various departments issue these letters called citations. Nobody bothers to enforce them. Nobody really does anything. But if you get enough of them, now you're chronic property. And the South Bend Police Department, I guess, has this mechanism in place that, well, you can remediate all these past citations if you sign an agreement to basically behave yourself. So this is where I came in. Mr. Berg, with my help, negotiated with the police department and the city legal department this remediation agreement. And I know you've seen it because Councilman Scott asked for it after the last committee meeting. And one of the things it said is that you can have music on the deck so long as it, what did they say, ended at 11 o'clock and it was only Fridays and Saturdays, and he had to let the people in the neighborhood know before he did it. So we did that. And that was in May. And I think by June he was sued by the city for having music on the deck. He nonetheless cooperated in that remediation agreement. There weren't any other citations after that. There haven't been any since then.
So since that time, what led you all to say, okay, you're going to come to the council to resolve this matter? What was?
Well, you may know, Councilman Davis, that there is a pending lawsuit between the city and Mr. Berg. And I guess I don't like to comment on the status or on the specifics of pending litigation. I can tell you that we decided that rather than battle this out in court, that it may be more fruitful to come before you and present this petition with the written commitments that we're not going to have music on the deck at all, and we'll shut it down at 11.
I will be asking the city and others to come up, but was there any kind of assurance that they gave you that they would be willing to enforce their agreement for you to feel comfortable enough to join in with this agreement?
Well, no, I don't think that discussion ever came up because I think we both know that both Indiana statute and your local ordinance specify how these commitments are enforced. And they can be, your ordinance says they're enforced by, I think this one says Area Board of Zoning Appeals because that's where it originated, or the City of South Bend, which of course would be the legal department, or property owners within 300 feet. And so that's a given. There's no negotiating that. That's what what the law requires.
Last 2 questions, and then I'm done. In terms of the issue, you said that Mr. Burke could have done something differently. What do you think he could have done differently that would have helped relieve the situation?
Well, when Bob Burke got started, there were some parties out there that were. The biggest issue was he used the house next door, the backyard of the house next door, which he owns, but wasn't really zoned for that use.
Gotcha.
And so that made it a lot bigger than what we've got now, which is a deck with capacity for 20 people.
And just for the record, you said that the person who's been challenging this has called every other city department. Really?
Well, I took a look at about this much emails that I received from the city through a public records request. I mean, the mayor's office, the police department, the legal department, your people, council members, I mean, anything and anybody, media outlets, everything. And it's the same old stuff over and over again.
So you would pretty much to those departments that you saw in the email then?
Right.
Okay, I'm at peace.
Any other questions this way?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
And these are, I think, Chuck Bulow as well.
I'm sorry?
If Mr. Bulow can answer some questions as well. Generally speaking, Chuck, if you don't mind, as you walk up, I'll interest in time. So what was the theory or the intent when the rezoning occurred? Is it 2004? When parcels of property were deemed non-conforming? What was the overall intent of that label? And then what is the process for bringing those into conformity? And I know some of these answers, but I really want you to go through that for the just clarification.
Sure. In 2004, first of all...
and I'm sorry, let me actually put a little bit of additional request in there. The piece about non-expansion, okay? So freezing it at the use as is. If you can maybe hit that.
Sure.
Thanks.
First of all, I want to say that the building department is not responsible for any rezoning.
Right.
That goes through area plan commission. In 2004, this is a kind of a thumbnail of what happened. They decided that it was time to rezone certain areas of the city, in and around the city. And what they did was they went through and they saw some properties that had similar characteristics: residential, commercial, industrial, central business district. So what they did, more or less as a matter of convenience, they surrounded each of these districts and designated a zone for that district. Well, as we all know, nothing's perfect. And along with some of these districts, certain types of properties were zoned probably improperly for what their function was. So this was, I think, a case where it's in a residential district, but it was used as a certain use that probably should have been taken out of a residential district and designated a separate use. It was designated commercial. And then when it was rezoned, to mixed use. Now, mixed use is a use that's more appropriate adjacent to a residential use than a commercial use. Part of the intent with zoning is to make a smooth transition from residential up to heavy industrial, so that you have less impact on adjacent properties. In other words, you don't want a preschool next door to a foundry. It doesn't make any sense. You need some kind of buffer or some kind of properties in between those. Now, in terms of legal nonconforming, when properties like this are rezoned, they are designated a certain zoning designation, and within that zoning designation are certain types of uses, certain types of setbacks, height restrictions, all of these other rules and regulations that govern that district specifically. if you are a use that is not recognized in that district, you are allowed to continue that use as long as you do not increase, and this is the term that's used in the zoning ordinance, the degree of nonconformity. So if you are close to a property line and you decide you want to move closer than the district allows, you're not allowed to do that. You'd have to get special compensation, dispensation in the form of a variance. The same is true for a use. Within the confines of this building is a bar that's been established. So that's the extent of the use. And as far as we were concerned, the problem occurred when that use extended into the exterior, increasing the area of the use. So technically, you cannot increase the degree of nonconformity, which the deck did.
So, follow up to that, it was the entire parcel from Dunham Street to, help me with the whatever south. So the entire parcel was deemed commercial or designated commercial. I'm sorry, it was in the past commercial, and then it was changed to mixed use as part of the paper?
Yes, that's
whatever,
correct.
the whole
That's
rezoning
correct.
process. The entire parcel was commercial, the
entire
entire parcel was changed to mixed use. And mixed use can include residential behind or above, correct?
That is correct.
As well as speak to what's located in the adjacent properties, right?
I'm sorry?
So it can also refer to a mixed-use district if it's not just a parcel, it's, when we talk about a district, it's a mix of residential and retail commercial, correct?
It goes, you can have a district that is basically a mixed-use
Right.
district,
But
but
this is
each
a
parcel
parcel.
is designated their own zoning designation.
And then maybe the process for changing or getting into conformance.
There are several ways you can do it. You can rezone, go through the rezoning process and get it rezoned properly to the use. If you look in each district designation, there are permitted uses, and then there are either special, and then there are special exception uses. The special exception uses are specific to certain types of uses that tend or could fit more easily in a specific district, as long as there is a reason why it would. Say, for instance, in the mixed-use district, you're allowed to have a family restaurant with lounge. You can't have that in a single-family district. You would have to rezone. You would have to rezone either to a district or a zoning that allowed that, or if, for instance, there was a special exception use in a single-family district, this is a hypothetical, that allowed family restaurant with lounge, then you could petition to get a special exception to allow that, but then you'd have to prove your hardship as to why you needed this.
Okay. Mr. Masters, if we rely, please, if we allow the rezoning, can the area board of zoning appeals well, I know they can modify or terminate, that would be the body that you would go. They could modify or terminate the commitments, at least that's what I'm reading from the documentation. If so, what is that process? Is that basically another public hearing? So you're making commitments tonight, but let's say a year from now or 2 years from now, Mr. Berg or subsequent owners want to back off of these commitments. What is that process? Or maybe Chuck could answer that better.
You said two different things, so I'm not sure. Let me take the first one. If a subsequent owner wanted to modify these commitments, there is a process allowed by statute where you'd have to go before the Area Board of Zoning Appeals and petition to modify those commitments. And it's just like asking for any other variance or special exception. You've got to give notice to everybody within 300 feet. You've got to have a public hearing. And I suspect that would come back before the council too, since you approved them. If you're asking me how do they enforce them, that's a different story.
No, I didn't. That was not where I wanted to go.
What you're asking is how they might be modified? Well, the statute says that you'd have to basically modify them the same way you created them, which is to go before the area board and then come before the council.
And then that gives the public the opportunity to weigh in.
Sure, the
and
same
us to consider.
requirement to
Okay.
give 300 notice to everybody within 300 feet.
Right. So earlier, at committee and then again tonight, these go beyond what's legally required.
That's true.
These commitments. Is there a forum other than the ABZA where you could ask, where your client or you on their behalf ask for relief from those commitments because they exceed the legal what's legally required?
No, that's the whole idea of making the commitments. That's the whole idea of making the commitments is you're willing to concede certain legal rights that you otherwise would have.
Okay, so even if they're going to there's a potential, I think, as we talked about earlier, these could hamstring this. I mean, making the commitments here today, I recognize it as a compromise, being put out there. Whether or not it's advisable as a business, I don't know. But last question. I guess I'm concerned about unintended consequences of how do I say this? Kind of a slippery slope is what I want to get at, that argument. If we allow, let me think if they could come back to me.
Yeah, we can come back.
It's a recognized process of making commitments on zoning matters, particularly where there's authority issues.
And maybe just briefly, let me take a hit at it. So this request is site specific, right? It's to this property and this property only. So would that preclude any other, precedent setting? Am I getting at it? Maybe somebody else has a question and can articulate it better. I don't know.
Setting a precedent.
Yeah. Somebody else try it. We're not hitting it there.
Well, let's put it this way. The council, not only can a property owner propose commitments.
Right.
The statute says the zoning board, the ABZA, and the council can require commitments as a condition for approving a variance or an exception. So I'm not sure there's any precedent being set there.
Ms. Brogan?
Kind of like Mr. Furley changing my commitment.
And I'll listen to the questions. Thank you both of you for all of your
No,
time.
it's kind of like Mr. Furley redrafting my commitment for me. May I ask though one thing, and I mean this seriously. You say no music will be played on the outside deck, nor will there be any amplified sound emanating from or to the outside deck or anywhere outside the building premises. What do you mean by amplified sound?
There are two, are you reading the correct one? There are two, I think there's a piece of paper and there should be, yes, the one it was folded to, not the top one, should be the second one.
No music will be played, nor will there be any amplified sound emanating.
Yes, that's the correct one.
Well, I'm not sure which is the one.
The one in the middle.
The one in the middle.
Yes.
Okay. I know. What is amplified sound?
You want me to look up Merriam-Webster?
Well, this is why I kind of wanted this before tonight, so we weren't going on the fly. Whenever you have a term that needs to be defined, then you're asking for slicing bologna, and I just assume no music meant no music.
I apologize. Aladine was supposed to email you what we had come up with last week. It didn't happen, so we came up with something that we think provided a little more clarity than just.
I know. I just don't want there to be any confusion. We walk out of here, and I redraft this. What do you mean by amplified sound? What do you intend?
You want to look up
Well, think about it, and let's, again, tell me before we walk out of here.
Sound amplified.
Amplified or broadcast, in any way. Amplified or broadcast.
Well, it's two different things. Broadcast.
This is emanating from or to. So again, it's, if you want me to look up Merriam-Webster's definition of amplified, you understand what amplified means. An example of amplified sound would be speaking into a microphone that has a speaker, and that sound being projected out onto the outside deck.
Question for you.
Okay, I can live with that, if that's what you mean.
I'm giving that's an example of what amplified sound
Well,
could
I think that's what it is.
Gavin, Mr. Davis has a question.
If a person's playing music so loud in their house or in their company, and people outside can hear it to the tune of where it's, I can come hear my name, would that be considered amplified?
If music is being played from inside the building out or inside the garage out onto the deck, then yes, that would be.
The doors are all shut, the windows are all shut, they're in there, and I can still be feeling sometimes vibrating. That's what you're saying cannot be happening?
If music is being played loud enough inside a building where with all the doors and windows shut, that it's still, I believe the term is emanate, it still emanates out onto that outside deck, then yes, that would be a violation of this. And again, this is something that the party has agreed to. They have said no music will be played on the deck. We just wanted to clarify with language.
Well, you're talking about amplified sound now.
My understanding.
Anything.
But see, the thing is, when I hear the word amplified myself, which I understand in theory, but in terms of in practice, that also is restricting music inside of the house. And because the music inside of the house,
with music being played.
Can we just say that there'll be no music broadcast onto the deck or anywhere outside?
No, see, the thing is, if you're playing music so loud in that place, and people in next door, because a lot of those homes over in that street, as you well know, are real close to each other, so which can cause some of the concern. So if a person, all doors are closed, everything else, and depending on which way the wind blows, and you can hear it, would that then, if your client, would he be then given a call from the police? No music is being broadcast outside, nothing's being there, but inside of the house, there's all this music playing, everybody's listening to it and enjoying themselves, and then they get a knock on the door from the police department, a nuisance issue, then that's what I'm trying to avoid. Is that, what's what I'm talking about?
Can I defer to you, Council
Yes.
Attorney Palmer? So Council Attorney Palmer helped with the drafting of the language. He actually was the one who came up with, we looked up the definition of broadcast, and it didn't seem to encompass what we wanted the way Emanate did, and again, achieve both of our goals. We're both on the same page here, so.
I understand, but
I'll turn it over to.
Because part of it, I just want to clarify, a part of what, I agree with the issue of no music outside, that's clear. But this almost gives the appearance of we're now, to some extent, regulating even the music inside, and then we have to be very clear with that, because then there's what's too loud, what's too not loud. There's sometimes my neighbors can play music that I hear coming in, but I know my neighbors sing that to me. And then other times they play the same music inside, I'm like, come on, okay? And so when does it become the come on situation when I'm ready to pick up the phone, call something else, go over there? I mean, those are the concerns that I have, because that's inside regulation more so than outside. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mr.?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, that one, I think what you're doing with this is imposing a restriction that basically nobody can live with. What you're saying is, if there's music inside the bar, somebody opens the door to go in and out and they hear noise, is that amplified sound emanating?
That's what I'm being...
Wow, who can live with that?
I'm just throwing it to you.
Over a sustained period of time.
As drafted, that would cover that as long as the sound from inside the bar is being amplified by speakers of any type. So yes, it would be covered. That's not the intent necessarily. The intent is to prevent.
Then we're going to get in. That's why we're going to get into. You go by any place, they open the door to come in and out. If there's a jukebox playing inside, you'll hear it. Is that broadcasting it outside? Is that intending to disturb the neighbors? You got people coming and going?
That's exactly what my question is, especially given the house. The neighbors over there and right there,
Well,
the homes are so close to each other given that situation. Look at where we are.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm going to remind you. If you look at the blue outline, that's on a corner. The house to the left of it, he owns. It's vacant. And then you've got across the street. It's the parking lot.
If you open
Okay.
it,
Any other questions?
We'll do whatever the council does what it wants to have, but I just don't want to create another problem.
Sure.
Let's have a,
That's why.
take a minute or two to think about it.
Regina? Randy? Joe, anything else?
Yeah, I haven't seen the draft language. I mean, and I think there needs to be some clarity. I don't want to,
I agree.
expand our scope here, and I don't know how we gain that additional clarity quickly.
Well, there's some more people who want to talk to you, and while that's going on, perhaps we can put our heads together and come up with something that can be proposed before we're done here.
All right.
I'm willing to do that.
Hold on a minute, we have a few more questions.
I know.
Dr. Barner.
Okay, thanks. This would be for Chuck. The question was asked about how do they become a non-conforming use, and the mixed-use district was created. It's not a conforming use. They're under no obligation. They're allowed to exist as a non-conforming use if it's grandfathered, correct?
That's true.
Okay, yeah, you know, yeah, thanks. So it can exist in that manner for as long as they want to allow it to exist, and there's no compulsion to bring it. The term you used, expanding use, but it's not allowed to expand its use. Is that an absolute that's been defined, or is that an interpretation that you have to make or somebody has to make?
Mr. Bueller.
It's for Mr. Bueller.
There's language in the ordinance that says cannot increase the degree of nonconformity.
But
that's really
and therein lies the problem. Well, how do you define degree of nonconformity, which is where I see this all sort of hinges right on that.
That's part of the reason why we're here, figuring we can set something that kind of defines it.
That's what I need to clarify. Thank you both.
I have a few questions, Mr. Masters, and for the
If
city.
I can try.
First, Mr. Palmer, would you kind of clarify what you said to me earlier? The ABZA did not hear, a part of the hearing and part of their thing was not the 3 commitments from Mr. Masters?
The hearing did include the commitments from the petitioner. They did make those commitments. The ABZA, however, did not include those commitments in their findings of fact.
Well, yes, they did.
No.
They specifically said that's why there's no harm, because of the written commitments.
But where it's in the space said for conditions or revisions, there is no entry.
They mentioned commitments, but it wasn't spelled out, and
Well,
we're still here today trying to spell those out, right?
Yes.
It's not, even if they did, you have the right to change them, that's not an issue.
Exactly.
But I believe, first of all, they had the commitments as part of the petition. They examined them. The staff examined them. That's why, for example, in response to criteria number 1, with the appropriate written commitments, the proposed use should not impact public health, safety, and general welfare. And then it says, number 2, approval should not affect the use or value of adjacent property, provided that the written commitments are fully executed. So they knew we had them.
Okay.
They wanted them to be signed. Now, even if they approved them as is, you have the right to change them. I understand that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. A couple other questions. You talk about accuracy and information given out to us. You mentioned that chronic nuisance, the owner was subject to the chronic nuisance list and abatement. Was no police officer, especially Keenan Lane, involved with validating the chronic nuisance violations before the letter was written?
He signed the agreement.
Okay, so the idea is written into the chronic nuisance law that people cannot just arbitrarily call on a resident just to get them in trouble. So within that, that's why there's a full-time police officer to validate those calls and those claims, because we've actually had, and I've talked to Mr. Lane about this because I wrote the ordinance, that the person making arbitrary phone calls to complain about a property can and have been given notice that they become a chronic nuisance. You see what I'm saying? They themselves. So you can't falsify calls to get someone on chronic nuisance. Therefore, the whole purpose was having an officer full-time to investigate all legitimate claims, and also the claims are based on documentation from the police department going out there.
I had the opportunity to review most of the police reports that came out, most of the responses to the calls, and you used the word legitimate, and I would quarrel with whether a lot of those calls were legitimate. One police report in particular struck me as being very interesting, where the officer said, I stood within 50 feet of the building and I couldn't hear anything, and yet the complainant lived 300 feet away and was complaining of loud noise. So you get phone calls and then you have legitimate complaints.
And what we're going by is what Officer Lane is doing his job.
Well,
So,
if
and
you,
we will-
if you did look at that chronic nuisance violation, there was one citation referenced in there. And by the way, that citation had to be rescinded by the city.
But the owner signed off on an abatement.
We signed off because we're
Okay.
trying to
All
resolve
right.
things.
Thank you. To the deck, you say the deck is set up for 20 people, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that deck would be open until 11 o'clock. How many days out of the week would that be?
Well, why don't you come on up here, Bob? You're not open on Mondays and Sundays? Or just Sundays?
Yeah, the deck will be open 7 days.
Your name and address for the record, sir.
Robert Berg, 51250 Tamarack Road in Carlisle.
Okay.
And the owner of the Friendly Confines at 1502 Dillon.
Okay, great. And what are your hours? What days of the week?
We open at 5 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And usually during the week, we're closed by 11 o'clock. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we are opening at 3 o'clock and opening till, depending on, whether we have customers in there till 3 o'clock.
So you're closed on Sunday?
Sunday, we're open on Sunday. We usually open at noon and we're closed usually by 8, 9 o'clock.
Okay. All right. My question is, do you agree that sound is accumulative?
Pardon?
Sound is accumulative.
Sure.
One person talking is less than 20 people talking at one time.
Yes.
Okay. My point is, 9 o'clock is when the sound ordinance goes in effect in South Bend. So would 20 people violate the sound ordinance from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock? It's arbitrary because we don't know. We don't know how loud those conversations are going to be.
I believe we do have a sound ordinance and also a decibel level that you're legally going up to.
Correct.
Which is what I was told by the police department. And I also bought a decibel reader so I can make sure we keep below that.
Right. But would you say that there's no true control over how loud or how soft someone could be talking? And 20 people at one time?
I guess that's true, but,
Okay. All right.
May I point out, Councilman Scott, that when this chronic nuisance violation or chronic property violation agreement was signed, it required Mr. Berg to have a decibel reader, which was calibrated with the police department's decibel reader, and there was no time, even when music was being played outside, that the sound exceeded the decibel readings allowed under the noise ordinance. And that's music being played, which has to be a whole lot louder and carry a lot farther than people's conversational voices.
Those are the questions I have right now, so thank you. Any other questions from council at this point?
Just one quick one.
Mr. Wardy.
Jim, Mr. Berg, you might know this. Every now and again, I don't know how often, but the Alcoholic Beverage Commission has to renew someone's license,
Yes.
correct, to operate. Would not they take into account the things that Mr. Berg has agreed to, these commitments and the restrictions under which he may operate should he be granted those permissions tonight? At his next hearing, what I'm asking is, would the Alcoholic Beverage Commission consider his commitment to be a good neighbor?
Yeah, yes, actually they would. Matter of fact, Lenny was at the Alcohol Commission Board for our last liquor license, which was granted to us. They did tell us that we have to be good neighbors, basically. And that's what we were trying to figure out. It's like, okay, we want to be good neighbors, let's be good neighbors. We will compromise, we will stop our music at a certain time. And that was originally, and that's when I went to work with the city, said, okay, what do we do? And we just keep getting different answers. We just need something saying, okay, so we're thinking this is a compromise.
Okay, so if there were nuisance calls for which citations were issued, that would probably be taken into account by the ABC when that license renewal came up. So your commitments would have to, the integrity of those commitments would be, would come into play when that license renewal would come up. Correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Also, it has to be a legit citation, because the citation we received at one, there was no decimal reader. We did ask for one, request one.
Mr. Gordy, if I understand where you're going, what you're saying is notwithstanding whatever the city might do, the entity, the government entity that regulates his license is going to hear about this annually when his license comes up for renewal.
Exactly.
And they're going to have a monitoring on this, and as you well know, somebody from the city attorney's office attends those hearings on behalf of the city.
Right.
So it won't only be whether somebody complains to the police or the city attorney's office or code enforcement or the building department. Somebody can go to it's the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission now and complain about it when his license comes up for renewal.
That's the point I wanted to make. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Vice President Davis, you have some questions for the city departments.
Can I have our attorney, Mr. Elliott?
We still have people that want to speak in favor of this one.
We'll get to the public portion.
Okay, thank you.
So
we had a good meal, so we're here.
I consider this the end of your presentation. We do have questions for the city as well, but we would like to call you back up if we got any questions.
We'll be happy to come back. Bob, did you want to say anything else in our formal presentation?
Well, what I was basically going to say when I first came in here, I came into a neighborhood on the west side where a lot of people said to me, what are you doing over there? But we've created a nice, comfortable place, which we have no issues ever inside that place. Not one fight in 4 years in that bar. The only issues we've had is from a couple neighbors complaining about the noise. We've tried to compromise and work with them. Matter of fact, when it first started, Lenny was called up, and if she was online and stuff, I said, come over and talk to us. She would never do that. She just went and kept calling the police. Most police officers, which we've never had an issue with, have been very, very polite with us every time they come out. And they basically said, you know what is the ordinance? Nobody knew what it is. Nobody knew how to regulate the sound. Where is it? All I was asking is, what do I need to do? And what I need is a straight answer from somebody saying, this is it. So we've come up with this compromise, figuring that could take care of everybody. Now, are there going to be people complaining still? Yes. I know a gentleman right behind me who basically said he wants to buy the bar and tear it down. We don't need places tore down in the city of South Bend. We need to build this city up.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate those comments.
Thank you.
We have a couple questions for the city, so
We'll come back.
we appreciate everybody's patience on this. I know this council wants to make sure they get their decision correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Just for the record, could you just state your name and address and position here in the city?
Good evening, Elliot Anderson, Assistant City Attorney, office on the 12th floor of this building.
And in your role as the city attorney, you cover what are the areas that you cover in your specialty for the city of South Bend?
Generally speaking, I handle the city's liability exposure and liability claims process. I also oversee our collections process, but I represent the building department, which is what brought me to be involved in this issue. I generally handle zoning-related disputes. So I became involved in this issue probably 2 years ago or so.
Okay. Could you carefully describe to us how the city council has come into this matter and in regards to the agreement that you have? The city joined in with Mr. Masters and his team there to come up with this kind of agreement?
Are you discussing the written commitments offered by Mr. Berg? There hasn't. I guess I can say this. There hasn't been an agreement between the city and Mr. Berg with respect to anything up to this point, other than an agreement to pause the pending litigation.
That's what I'm talking
while
about.
Mr. Berg accessed this avenue to potentially have his.
Can you tell me how that came to light and what your role was in that and the recommendation for this part of it?
Sure. Mr. Berg and his counsel discussed it and decided that it was a good idea and that they believed that would be a better option than pursuing a trial on the permanent injunction that the city had filed against Mr. Berg.
And when you heard it, what gave you confidence that we could, as a city, carry this part of it out, our side of it out?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand that question.
When they came to you and they shared you their thoughts regarding making this presentation, what gave you the confidence to say, okay, that's a good idea?
Well, it wasn't a matter of confidence. I've been in contact with many of the community members over the last year, 2 years, Mr. Dobish, Ms. Kay, and I've discussed with them at length that this was always an option. Mr. Berg always had the opportunity to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals and go before council to have his special exception use recognized and the expansion then carry out into the outdoor area outside of the bar. So there was never any decision on my part that pushed them into that idea. It was always something that was available to them, and they determined, I suppose, during the pendency of the litigation pertaining to the injunction, that that was the avenue that they wanted to access at this point.
Question. Thank you for that. There have been some testimony over the last few weeks that the building department gave a permit and then said, no, we shouldn't have given you a permit. And then here we are with the fence. No, the fence interpretation was wrong. Okay, this is something that we should play so much music, and then all of a sudden they get an injunction within a few days before the ink is dry, using that phrase. Could you share from your side of the story? You've heard from Mr. Masters' side of the story that basically the city even admitted to fault with the permit, the fence. I haven't heard them permit to anything on that, but there was some, according to, it seemed like Mr. Masters' side, there was some mistake that was made with the fence, and of course there was some misunderstanding that was with this last agreement that came with the issue of sound, which led you to do the injunction. So there's three different things. Could you share some light from your point of view, from the city's point of view, regarding that?
Sure. I believe that Mr. Masters' representation regarding the permit for the deck is correct. At one point, Mr. Berg tried to determine whether or not he needed a permit. He accessed the city's building department. He was informed because I believe at the time it was thought that the property that he was inquiring about was a residential property, in which case a deck of a certain height does not require a permit. It was later determined that it's not a residential property, it's a mixed-use district, and so a permit is required for the deck. At this point, that's sort of been shelved because we've had the injunction ongoing. As to the fence, I believe that there was not a permit that was obtained initially. Later there were conversations with the building department, and subsequently Mr. Berg did obtain a permit for the fence, and that was with the input of, I think it was ATC, or the state excise police that determined that the 7-foot height for the fence was required. As far as the noise issue goes, the noise was sort of ancillary to the actual zoning violation that the building department identified.
Time out.
Yes, sir.
Explain ancillary to me in the way that you're looking at it. Break it down for me.
Sure. So the zoning violation was the expansion of the use into the outdoor area. Part of the expansion of the use into the outdoor area carried with it then the noise that took place when that use occurred. And so the the injunction that was filed would have been filed irrespective of noise, assuming that there was some other issue relating to that use. Now, the noise was necessary to show to the court because it became an issue of the use and enjoyment of the neighboring properties. And so it was sort of ancillary to that expanded use issue. But the true part of the injunction was the expansion of the use, not the noise.
Question.
Yes.
The time of the infraction of the noise, because that was a part of the reason you gave to the court, correct?
Yeah, I believe that this originated as it originated as a noise complaint, but noise has never been the crux of the issue that has been litigated.
But since it was a noise complaint, it was housed in the noise section, correct?
I'm sorry?
Since it was a noise complaint, correct?
There were noise complaints to the
Okay,
city.
let's
yes.
take it as a noise complaint.
Sure.
So once this noise complaint comes in, do you know how many days, weeks, months that you enforce the injunction after that infraction?
How much time passed before the injunction was filed?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I believe that the initial noise complaint started in maybe 14, carried through early 15, and the injunction, I believe, was filed.
No. Not the initial noise. The noise for this last situation that created that. Mr. Masters has said that before the ink was dry, you filed an injunction. That's what he said.
Oh, the remediation agreement you're referring to.
Pardon me?
The remediation agreement?
Yes,
is what
sir.
you're referring to? Sure.
That's what I am. I'm done here. The last piece of it, I gave three things. We talked about the permit, we covered that, we talked about the fence, and the last thing is the remediation agreement. And he said, before the ink was dry, y'all came to some kind of remediation agreement they had some type of violation, and after that violation, it was like you moved in. So my question to you today, with this mediation agreement, I'm not talking about the initial or anything else, this particular thing, how much time from that situation did you follow through with the lawsuit?
So the remediation agreement was entered, I believe, in late 15. The use of the deck stopped as a natural consequence of South Bend's weather. So we didn't hear anything from about October, November through April of 2016, presumably because nobody was using the outdoor area. So I think it was sometime in April then that we received the first contact from a neighbor of the property. And after that contact, the injunction was filed in either, I think it was June 2016.
So you heard something in April, and you enforced it in June.
That's correct. So it was either April or May, and then the injunction was filed in June.
So it could possibly be within 4 weeks.
That's true. I can verify that.
Can you verify that for a second for me?
So a letter was sent following the entry of the remediation agreement. There was a letter sent. I disclosed this information to council. It was also provided to you at your request at the last meeting. But there was a letter sent to Mr. Berg on June 6, 2016, notifying him that unless further action was taken, such as the one before you today, that the city would proceed with pursuing injunctive relief against him. That was sent on June 6, 2016.
And his infraction occurred on what day?
That letter was sent on June 6, 2016. On June 10, 2016, there was an email that the city received regarding allegations pertaining to noise and what appeared to be an escalating situation between either patrons of the bar, I'm not sure who, and community residents. After that was received on June 10, 2016, the injunction was filed within, well, I filed my motion on June 21st. I think I filed the complaint for injunctive relief within a day or two prior to that. So
Okay.
It was within 10 days or so.
Last question is regarding, we relate back to that. You acted pretty quickly when it came down to that situation based on everything else, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so.
All right, fine. And I didn't use rush, I just said quickly, but you did. Could you, or do you have any statements, are you prepared to say from the mayor's office tonight, from the police department tonight, from code enforcement, or from anything else in legal, that if there was any more infractions, if we pass this, and there are any more infractions, are you prepared to say that, or do we have anything on file from these officers that they are going to really stand behind this enforcement?
I can only, I can't speak for any of those departments, or what I can say is that section, I think it's 21-10, sorry, bear with me, I think it's F8, states specifically that the building department has the primary enforcement responsibility for enforcing any violations of written commitments for special exception uses. The Department of Code Enforcement runs secondary on that. They'll issue notices and citations. There's a timeline for that. It's usually about 20 to 30 days as it plays out. If nobody abides by those notices and citations that are issued, injunctive relief, such as what the city already filed against Mr. Berg, can again be filed.
So based on what you just shared with me, the police have no role in this, right?
Police would have an investigatory role, sir, because I don't believe a member from the building department or code enforcement could go out to the property late at night to verify that there's a noise dispute or some issue that's arising at the property.
So who would have to go and verify? So if neighbor Jones has a complaint, what's the process and how would enforcement be carried out?
I would expect that that person would contact the police department. The police department would dispatch an officer to the location of the bar to investigate and determine whether or not that complaint could be substantiated. If it is, then a report would be generated and sent to another department within the city, such as the building department.
Such as, or would it be that one?
It could be code though, but building runs primary. So I would expect that it would go to building, and then building would investigate and make a determination about whether it wants to proceed with enforcement.
And what would be the determination of how would they proceed if something sounds that is getting to a level? What are the criteria for that?
I mean, it doesn't seem particularly discretionary when you think about, if the police had substantiated a complaint against the bar, you would expect that the building department would take action. So there's not a whole lot of discretion, I guess. I'm using that word because I don't want to speak on behalf of an enforcement officer. I don't have that authority.
I understand. So then from there, it goes where?
A notice would be issued. That's 21-10G1A, I think. A notice gets issued. There's a 10-day window for the person to become compliant. If that 10-day window passes, another notice issues or first citation issues. That leads to another 10-day window. If no further action is taken by that individual, then daily citations can be issued. If those citations don't cause there to be remedial action, then the city can pursue injunctive relief.
And so you're looking at approximately, running in my head, 3 months,
No, sir, I would say you're looking at probably 30 days.
30 days before injunctive relief, and then the injunctive relief comes back. I mean, I understand law can be anything, in court can be anything, but the thing about it, what we have a big concern here, down from the first item that I have, when it says public safety, it says for safety, and there's another word,
Health, safety, comfort.
comfort, the health, the comfort and safety. So the person who is challenging this, their health and their safety and comfort, I'm trying to get a picture in my mind, how much time do they have to relieve themselves of this situation? And we have no record. We realize the police has not weighed in on this yet, given us, we have, the code has not weighed in, and legal has not weighed in, except from you, from that standpoint. I'm glad you are here to weigh in tonight.
Yes, absolutely. So just looking strictly at the terms of the ordinance, you have a notice going out, you have 10 days, you have a second notice going out, you have another 10 days, so you're at 22 days or so. And then following that, the decision is made then, are there daily citations issued? Is there some additional agreement that can be worked out with the owner? If those things fail, then you're looking at court action.
I do, based on what you just shared here, I'll cut it here. You shared what the process is. We know that now. What kind of comfort can you give us and give the people who are opposing this issue, given the history of it seemingly that there was delay in taking care of issues in prior situations? What are we putting in place now to ensure that enforcement and everything else is not going to fall in the path of what it has been in the past?
Sure.
What are we doing differently? That's what I need to do, because if we just say, if everybody says there's statute, well, those things have been there, but somehow, some way, it did not get taken care of. So what are we doing now, since we realize this is an individual situation? What are we doing to put in place so the comfort and safety of the people have, which were seemingly not taken care of in the past, is now taken care of?
Sure. I appreciate your question, Councilmember Davis. I'm a little bit reluctant to stand in the shoes of people that have been doing this a lot longer than I am, that have the enforcement authority that I do not. So I will leave comments that I think would probably be better tailored to your question to those people. But I will say that the city has moved forward with injunctive relief in this case. So I've personally been in contact with neighbors of this property. I've worked with them, I've discussed this issue with them, I've met with them, I've taken this case to court, I've argued it in court, I've argued it multiple times in court, and I suppose if I can say from my perspective what should give anybody comfort in knowing that the city cares about what it is that they think about this property and what the city's willing to do to enforce their rights, they would just take a look at the injunction that I filed and the motion that I filed and the trial that I conducted last year and the meetings that I've had with them and the witness preparations that I've done and all the things that I've done up to this point over the last 2 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Question? Mr. Anderson, before you close. Yes, sir. Yeah, just one real quick. You said as the final step in the process, the city may seek injunctive relief. Is that how you stated it?
That's correct.
So the city's not obligated to
No.
seek it? I think that's maybe the point that what Mr. Davis was getting at, that there's no guarantee that the city will take that final step.
That's true, but I also can't speak on behalf of my
Oh,
boss.
no,
who
I
ultimately
understand
is
that.
the one that would make that
Yeah.
decision, sir. Yes.
Yeah, but it remains a question mark.
Sure.
From, as we stand here tonight, that portion remains a question mark.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
specific language,
I hear you. Yes, you finished it well.
the specific language is
I appreciate it.
the South Bend City Attorney, Zoning Administrator, or appropriate enforcement official may institute legal action in a court of competent jurisdiction to enforce the terms and conditions of this ordinance, including but not limited to enforcement of a cease and desist order, assessment and collection of fines, or the pursuit of injunctive or other equitable relief and remedies available under Indiana law. Now, the idea there, I believe, the intent of that statute is to try to work with business owners and property owners in the city before you sue them. That's always our goal, and that's what we've done in the past. So I would expect that there would be some effort made in that sense, and that's why I'm a little bit reluctant to say, yes, we'd absolutely go to court over this in a heartbeat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none,
Thank you.
I believe, Mr. Furlick, you're crafting,
Yeah, we've got some, you can hear from the public first.
okay. We are going to open it up to the public. Again, I'm going to restate, this is the public portion. Members of the public are invited to address the council. Please give your name and address and comments on the bill. If you have any questions, they will be addressed by the presenter during the rebuttal. Each member of the public is limited to 5 minutes of speaking in favor going first, followed by those in opposition, 5 minutes in rebuttal. And then there's a 5-minute rebuttal period. Please, if you can, do not be repetitive. If you agree with what that person is saying, you can raise your hand. What we're looking for is new information. Anyone speaking in favor, please come to the podium. As Mr. Davis is doing, sign your name and address to the list, and then you will be asked to give your name and address. Dr. Varner will will time you and give you a 1-minute exit warning before your 5 minutes is up. You can line up against the back wall there. So with that, go ahead, Mr. Davis, show them how it's done.
Okay, now we're speaking in favor, right?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Well, for
Name and
starters, Jesse Davis, PO Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. For starters, it sounds like a lot of this is being carried on and costing us a whole bunch of litigation and money because we have a nuisance ordinance that I sat here when it was voted through. Many people came up here and said, hey, this needs to be put on hold until you have it written right. It's going to be challenged. It's going to cause problems. And apparently this nuisance ordinance doesn't have a whole lot of teeth to it. So I saw an article in the Tribune the other day about a new club or bar on Ironwood. And the Tribune literally ripped this place apart because its patrons apparently left the establishment after they were closed, went down the street to another parking lot at a gas station, and were gathering. And so this property that's only been open now for a handful of months is all of a sudden a nuisance property. And you've got Mr. Bird here. I sat in on more than one meeting back in your little committee room. I believe it's been 2 or 3 years ago. And I can probably, most of you council members, several of you weren't even here then, but I can tell you which ones that were here at that point who had a problem with this bar. Probably still do. I've been in front of you numerous times about a bar right down the road from here called Frank's Place. These are some photographs that I took Sunday morning. Saturday evening, a few friends of mine that live in that neighborhood called me and said, hey, man, this is crazy. So I went over there.
Mr.
This
Davis?
is on topic. No, you're not going to stop me. This
No,
is on topic.
stick to the special exception
I'm
about
sticking to it.
this.
So a lot of this is arising because of nuisance. Nuisance, that's what we keep hearing. But the problem is we pick and choose. It's selective enforcement on nuisance. We got bars that are having shootings. They're leaving trash everywhere. They're partying in parking lots. Those people aren't on nuisance. These guys have been getting hammered, man. This has been a bar for how many years? It's been used as that. Then we got a building department that says, oh yeah, we screwed up. We didn't do the right thing. We didn't say the right thing. We didn't make them pull a permit, but now they got to get a permit. And hey, we changed how the property was zoned. I had the same thing happen. I bought a property. The city went, I closed on it. When I got my zoning papers on it, they had cut my property that I bought into 2 plots and added one to this property and one to this property. And I can't even use one part of it. That's kind of what you're doing to these folks here too. Somebody came and changed the use or the zoning of it, and now you're telling them, hey, you can't use it. You know? So bottom line is, I think we should look at the records of the previous bar and the police calls that were there, legitimate police calls, by the way, and take a look and see what the previous owner did. And then take a look and see how many calls you've had, legitimate calls on this bar. I mean, this was all over social media as well. I saw the complaints. It was pretty obvious who the specific complainers were. So I just think this is another case of selective enforcement. And I truly believe that, you know, we need to look at this and let this man run his business. Well, why try to hamper another business in town?
Okay, thank you.
You can have these, by the way. You probably ought to take a look at those.
Next name and address, sir.
Robert Berg, 51250 Tamarack Road, New Carlisle, Indiana. I'm obviously the owner. I talked to you earlier. We're looking to compromise, obviously, which I talked to you guys before.
Sir, I'm sorry. Being part of the presentation, you cannot speak again during the public portion.
Okay.
Like a
Come back then.
rebuttal.
You can,
No,
you're
that's
part of
right.
Mr. Masters in the rebuttal.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry about that.
No problem.
Lawrence Jasinski, 10,026 Shadowwood Drive in Granger. I would just like to say, I'm a distributor for legalized pull tabs in the state of Indiana, and I'd like to speak for the character and integrity of Bob Byrne. When I approached him on being able to sell the legalized pull tabs in the bar, he explicitly told me, I will do it as long as I make sure that everything is legal. He was more concerned about being righteous in that attempt. The other thing I'd like to comment on is the fact that no more than 1,500 feet away, there's another bar that's much larger than this one, and they're doing it, and I don't see that too much in the news. All Bob is doing is the American dream of wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Thank you, sir. Next name and address.
Yes, Steve Singleton, 1332 4th Street. I'm going to kind of continue off what he said about the other bar. Not only is it just bands, they're big bands, you know, Blammo, big band, always play at big venues. And me living there, I can hear them all the way, almost like I'm in the backyard of that bar. Now, this bar, it's a great place. You know, it's very clean inside. And since they opened it, always been clean. You know, they keep it up, they keep it maintained. The drinks are spectacular, of course. You know, we build playgrounds for kids so they can grow together as a community. So why not build something of, you know, real good community with the adults? And that's what this is doing for that neighborhood, is everyone knows each other in the neighborhood now because of this place. You know, and since I've been going there, I've met a lot of people myself. So as far as this bar goes, and everything with the noise, it really isn't that bad. You know, I used to live at a previous location, basically behind the bar. I never had issues with it.
All right, thank you, sir. Next name and address.
My name is May Markowitz. I live at 51250 Tamarack Road in New Carlisle, Indiana. I have been the manager of the Friendly Confines since we opened our doors 4 years ago. We have had, of course, problems with this specific neighbor. My concern is if everything goes well today, and we have agreed to, Mr. Berger's agreed to sign his contract, we no longer have music outside. We agreed to stop our music a year and a half ago. We've had no music on the deck. Yet, the problem was of the noise. We've gotten calls and complaints that the gentleman who picks up our trash dumpster, when he put it down with his truck, it was 6 inches on the sidewalk. Somebody called the police to complain about that. We have people all over the neighborhood, within blocks, that will park up on the tree line, up on the curb. We get complaints about that. They may or may not be our patrons. Those are things that are out of our control. So it's just not about noise anymore. We have been being bullied for 2 years. This specific person that's complaining, there was a council meeting a year and a half ago maybe. There was a shooting on the west side of South Bend. This person that's complaining about the bar brought up that she found shell casings in front of her house. They came from the bar. The South Bend Police Department, ma'am, no, they did not come from the bar. It has nothing to do with the bar. But that's the kind of thing she's saying. If a loud car drives by, she says it's from our bar. She's complaining about traffic. Well, of course, the roundabout just opened. So all of that traffic was diverted to Walnut Street. So there's going to be more traffic. It's the neighborhood. People drive by with loud music in their cars. She's saying that's our fault. So that's my main thing, is that we have just been being bullied. we signed this contract, we no longer have music on the deck, which, like I said, we haven't had in a long time. We're still going to be being bullied. And like he said before, it's selective. For some reason, it's being put on us when we have cleaned up this bar. Mr. Berg had previously said, we've never had a fight in that bar. We do not allow any kind of illegal activity in our bar. When we first opened, we banned 4 people for life because we don't want any trouble in our bar. We want to run a good, clean, safe place. And as a matter of fact, just last week, the South Bend Police Department came to us because there was another crime in the neighborhood having nothing to do with the bar. But we have security cameras placed outside of our bar. They came to us asking if we would help them with this problem. So, that's my main concern, the music, the knob, so that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, name and address.
Hi, Katie Reeves, 1001 South Mayflower. May hit a lot of what I was going to say, so I feel bad, but that'll make it shorter. I live and work on the west side. I have 4 generations of my family from the west side. I volunteered at over 11 private clubs on the west side in the last 20 years. Friendly Confines is one of the safest bars I've ever been into, and I've seen things on the media about how it is a nightclub. Been to birthday parties where there's a couple girlfriends in their 30s hanging out. A couple guys I know from the Legion come down because they want to hang out with us girls in our 30s to help us celebrate our birthday and maybe buy a couple drinks. We sat on the deck. That's the extent of our noise. It's not loud. It's not parties. There have been bands out there it was loud, and they've obviously gotten rid of it. But there's very few places on the west side where there's owners that are willing to spend the money that these owners have spent in there. And they're not only doing it by fixing up the outside of the building so it's not, I don't know if you guys knew what that looked like before, but before they did all the improvements on it, it was bad. And I think it looks very nice now. They also volunteer. The money that they make, their profit, goes to other organizations here in town. They help rebuild Harrison School's playground. They've donated to Kernan's Kids. I think it was the La Casa Amistad, don't quote me on that. I had a list, but I forgot it. But they've invested in our community, and I really hate to lose somebody like that, constantly fighting the city. Just want to end this with 2 short stories. Well, 1 short story, actually. About 3 weeks ago, there was 2 gentlemen that came in. We were celebrating, I think, after the zoning hearing. About 7 or 8 of us, waiting to hear what the verdict was going to be. And these guys, I talked to them, never met them before in my life. 2 guys that were late 60s, early 70s. And I got to talk to them, and they told me how they were from Chicago. They have a vacation home in Michigan. And they heard somewhere through somebody somewhere in Chicago, maybe, that this was a really nice place to go to. So they went golfing in the morning. They came all the way from Michigan, went golfing in the morning, stopped here, had lunch, stopped at Friendly Confines, had a couple drinks with me, and then they were interested in going to South Bend Cubs game. That's the kind of people this bar is bringing into our community. It's nothing like all the bad things you hear in the media. This is a great place, and that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
Hello, my name is Tessa Harris, 54450 North 30th Street, South Bend, Indiana. I've been coming to the bar for probably about a year now, and just going to keep it short and sweet. In an otherwise unsafe neighborhood, I've always felt safe there. I've always felt welcome there. I feel like they have improved the face of the bar, and which can help with, surrounding residential areas and the values of properties. I can speak that Bob Berg is a wonderful man, and he cares about his community, and he will continue to do things that are going to improve the community.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
Hi, my name is Lisa Popilski. My address is 55345 Lexington Avenue, South Bend. And I'd like to speak as a former resident of the neighborhood. It was probably 17 to 21, so it was quite a while ago. But I moved into the neighborhood knowing that it had 5 bars, a church, and a bank. That's what was there. And so, when you hear 3 o'clock noises at night when the bars are all going out, and it is what it is. That is what the neighborhood is. And it wasn't, I lived on Ford Street, 1340 and a half Ford. The reason that I wanted to come here today is because
I'm not like a regular at the bar. I've probably been there less than 10 times over the past 3 years. But I watched a Notre Dame game out of the patio, and I loved it. I mean, it was really nice. And I was sitting at Samari's on their outdoor area over the weekend, and I'm like, why can they have an outdoor area and Friendly Confines can't? I think it seems like a lot of the bars are going to having the outdoor space too. And I don't know if it's because the older bars set up were narrow, long, and smaller. I mean, there were probably 3 times as many people outside that could fit inside the bar. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
Mark Kwiatkowski, 605 Kosciuszko Street. I live 4 blocks away from the bar. Great place, friendly people, met new friends there, clean, just an awesome place.
Okay, thank you. Next, name and address.
My name is Victoria Kaczarski. I live at 805 South Longwood Street. My mom, Monica, is back there also. She's 87.
We saw her.
The rear of our property is directly east of Harris Street, adjacent to the tavern, which is about 15 feet from the bar. The bar sat empty for many years. It was filled with ne'er-do-wells, neighborhood ne'er-do-wells. They congregated in the front. There was mischief, there was vandalism, broken out windows, including our garage, graffiti on neighboring buildings, questionable meetings in the empty parking lot next to our house. Since the tavern opened, we've not witnessed any events where police were summoned. No fighting, no loud, boisterous, or illicit behavior. There's never trash. There's never aluminum cans, bottles in the parking lot next to it. The bar owners keep the neighborhood clean. They've replaced the dilapidated, collapsing fence that was an eyesore. They have a lovely, attractive vinyl fence now. Overgrown weeds are gone. The patio is lovely with appropriate lighting. They also have a safety light that comes on. I'm a nurse. I have no air conditioning in my house, so my windows and my doors are open. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm never bothered by any loud, boisterous behavior. I'm never kept up because of loud, boisterous behavior. If I was, they'd hear about it. Like I said, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I work 10, 12-hour days. It's not a bar, it's not a business. These people also care about the customers that come in. They've held benefits for people. A woman was killed in a car accident. They held a benefit for her kids. Another man's wife had a bad medical condition. They had a benefit to help raise money to help offset medical expenses. It's a family business. This bar has been a bar for at least 87 years that my mom can remember. Our question is, why is this all happening now when it's been a bar for as long as anybody in that neighborhood can remember? It's an asset to our community, and it's something that we would like to bring people to the west side, because the west side is growing with the South Bend Cubs, and we'd like to see those people come farther west. Like the other people said, we've not had any music in over a year, so I don't know what the problem is at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, name and address.
Good evening once again, Jasmine Brown, 230 Sadie Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46628. I am extremely new to this narrative. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. May I have been living in a hole, I don't know, for the last 3 years or so. But from what I hear from the residents, what I hear from the attorney, and what I hear from the gentleman, that he is running a business and he seems to be getting along with the city and trying to do what they are asking. What it seems to me is it is selective enforcement, not because of what I see at this bar, but because what I see in my neighborhood. I've been asking a lot of times for people to come and give me help for an illegal drug dealer that's running a business out of his house, and nobody, not Keenan Lane, not any city attorney, not anybody is giving me help on getting this gentleman or this house removed or this problem taken care of. Leave this gentleman alone. If he's bringing something to the west side, which you know is dilapidated, which you know is run down because we're not putting anything into it, then let this gentleman run his business. And if the community is willing to support him, the community is willing to stand behind him, the community is willing to stand up and say, yes, we are a part and we will be a strong part of this, let this gentleman be. I just don't see why we're continually going after and after this. From what I understand and what I'm hearing of the narrative, it's one select council member and one member at large. I need that member at large to come to my neighborhood too and enforce something like you're enforcing on this gentleman, if we're going to do it equal across the board. But don't let this gentleman who's running a legal business be harassed and tethered at constantly when I have illegal business running across the street from my house and I get no help. Thank you.
Mr. Brown. It's hard to go behind that one. Samuel Brown, 222 East Brown Street, City of South Bend. Got a watchdog group called Citizens United for a Better Government. I don't even know this gentleman. I used to read the gas meter when I was working for NIPSCO at that Donald Inn back in the day. But from the little information I understand, I worked with Kenneth Lane, the abatement officer of nuisance in the city of South Bend. I worked with the police chief, Reiser, Rakowski. I helped a group on the west side. And all it takes is somebody to get a bug up their butt and call in your business and have the right clout and can bring all kinds of havoc. I don't care what he does. He can do everything right. But if he got the right people behind the scenes, hitting the right notes, he's a bad guy. And it's wrong. Let him run his business. If he's complying and doing all the things, because the group of helpers, they've been around 40 years. I go to the police chief, I stayed up 2 days without sleep overlooking a function. The same time across town, I was told there was another group having a function, but they said only focus on the function where the black guy is at. I got this from the inside tip. He's a police officer. So all I'm saying to you is, let the guy take care of his business, as long as he's complying. Don't put no due hardship on him, because Joe Alley down the street can make a call, I hear noise, and they're going to send somebody out there if you got the right clout.
Thank you.
Sharon Panicki, 3822 Ford Street. I've personally never been in this bar. I just feel there's been a lot of mistakes made on both sides, and at this point, one person has dug their heels in, and no matter what compromise is offered to that citizen, she is going to yell, scream, holler, and make a fuss. The man is bending over backwards, doing everything he can to appease everybody, and he just keeps meeting roadblocks. It's been a bar since my uncle owned it. Let it continue to be a bar. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, those speaking in opposition can now come to the podium, and you have 5 minutes each.
Thank you, Kevin Wooding, 821 South Walnut Street, South Bend, Indiana. First of all, I would like for each and every one of you to consider reasons to deny special exception to 1502 West Dunham Street, known as the Friendly Confines Bar. First off, I would like to address the agreement that Mr. Berg has entered into with regard to the hours of operation and music generated from the back area. History has shown that he will not effectively adhere to this agreement. This has been established by his disregard for South Bend codes, ordinances, and laws. It is interesting to note that this establishment is on a 1-year probationary period with the alcohol board, also due to irresponsible behavior. Quite simply, Mr. Berg has established himself as an irresponsible, untrustworthy, and inconsiderate business owner. Let's say, for instance, that Mr. Berg is granted special exception. What immediate relief options are guaranteed to the residents of this neighborhood if Mr. Berg decides his establishment will no longer want to abide by the confines of this agreement? What immediate relief options are guaranteed to the residents when this bar changes hands and the new owner decides that the agreement will not be honored? Also, eliminating parking ratio will inherently have adverse effects to the safety of a densely populated residential area. An increase of patronage also increases the chances of inebriated drivers leaving the bar, possibly striking one or more of the countless children playing close to the sidewalks and streets, as the bar's hours of operation are also within the legal hours before curfew. Most would believe that at this point that this point alone is non-debatable and would consider this the most compelling argument against an expansion of a bar in a densely populated residential area. But if that's not compelling enough, please consider that the businesses in this area whom have a vested interest in the neighborhood as proprietors not only work here but also live here. What precedent does giving a business owner who has broken codes, laws, and ordinances, giving him special exceptions after said violations have been in effect pardoned? How can one be expected to be a responsible proprietor if others of means are forgiven their offenses and, to add insult to injury, are given consideration to change the rules that have been broken to their favor? It's a terrible precedent to set. Also, eliminating the parking ratio will also be detrimental to the neighborhood by reducing parking for residents during normal business hours. Parking is only allowed on one side of the 1500 block of West Dunham Street and the 800 block of South Harris Street. Patrons will invariably, as they have in the past, block garage access to residents, park in tree lawns, and make it unreasonably difficult for residents to park nearest their homes, especially in the winter months. The Plan Commission had it right in 2004 by zoning the property as it stands to protect the neighbors in a densely populated neighborhood. Lastly, if you have heard from patrons of this bar, these same patrons may or may not live in this neighborhood, but I ask that you consider that loyal patrons come and go, but loyal residents and responsible business owners are here to stay for the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against?
Lenny Kay, 821 South Walnut Street. I want you to imagine an outdoor nightclub within 300 feet of your home. The zoning petition for a special exception is the only protection the residents have for peace and tranquility against the potential disruption from one multi-millionaire business owner and his desire to reuse a deck as an outdoor nightclub. Nearly a dozen residents have complained over the years, not just me. Nevertheless, the voice of even one resident's complaint should take precedence over a business in a residential area. Contacting our council representatives for assistance is why we elected them, and this information should not be inadmissible with respect to the job we expect them to do. The statements from patrons who do not live within 300 feet of the bar should be irrelevant, as their residential comfort is not in question. Only 2 of the 12 who spoke in favor live within 300 feet. The denial of the special exception will not shut down the bar or adversely affect the bar. It will simply force the owner to use the bar as it has been used for decades without an outdoor patio. I urge you not to reward him for his blatant disregard for rules and regulations. Residents of my neighborhood have coexisted with a number of bars for decades. None of these bars have ever conducted business with an outdoor nightclub. Regardless of what commitment clause Berg makes with relation to the deck, he has clearly demonstrated his disregard for the law by not obtaining the zoning approvals before he built his deck, and then by using the deck even after knowing it was illegal, forcing the city to obtain the motion to cease the use. He has also demonstrated how he intends on using the deck as indicative of the past 3 disrupted years. He has not proven himself to be trustworthy and therefore should not be granted the special exception use. Since he violated zoning for 2 years, what indication has his behavior provided to give cause for anyone to believe that he will not violate again? Maybe he knows that playing music and having patrons on the deck after 11 p.m. is a violation that will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to enforce. The South Bend Police Department will have no jurisdiction to enforce a violation of a commitment clause in a zoning petition. Zoning and code would need to observe the violation in order to cite, and their authority is limited to citing and issuing fines. And as Mr. Masters stated, no one pays attention to those things. They have no jurisdiction to request a cease and desist. Once again, residents will be held hostage by one business. Berg wants the Common Council to approve the BZA petition because he knows that if he violates his commitment clause, it could take years before he legally had to stop, or maybe he knows he would then be unstoppable. Either way, the residents in a residential area lose to one single disruptive business. A denial allows the residents and the business to coexist in peace and comfort. Maybe the existing zoning ordinance was written to help protect residents from this type of problem. If so, I beg you, don't allow a special exception to take away our protection. I also have a letter written from a resident who couldn't be here and owns 3 properties within the 300 feet of the property. I'd like to enter it in if possible.
And submit it to the clerk. And the clerk can pass it to the council members.
Thank you.
What's that?
She's got about, about a minute. No, there was less than a minute left, even less than.
Yep.
It was around 4:30.
We'll pass it. So you're speaking against?
Hello. Mike?
You're speaking against?
Yeah. No,
Yes.
I'm, this is the first time.
Are you speaking against the special
Oh,
exception?
against, yeah.
Okay, your name and address, sir.
Okay, my name's Joseph Dobish. I live at 818 South Harris Street. I'm about 150 feet south of that bar. I lived there 70 years. I hope to die there, but it's not, I don't think it's going to happen. But the noise is terrific. I've even gone so far as to hire audio specialist to set up a unit on my yard to get the 76 dB thing straightened out, because I've been told that if my windows shake, it's higher than 76 dBs. So it's been awful for the last 2 years. Well, it's been nice now because he's quiet, but I like Mr. Furlick's and Mr. Oliver's suggestion about keeping the bar quiet so he can't hear it outside, because it was a neighborhood bar. And a neighborhood bar was where old people went and played cards and watched the Cubs game. They can watch the Cubs games without having to have their ears blown out. If they want to have their ears blown out, keep the doors closed, the windows closed, and nobody on the deck, because at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's people laughing, yelling, screaming. I know they can't do anything about it because they left the bar. It's beyond their control. But it's not, it affects me, my comfort. Like you say, my comfort. And then when they leave, the cars are zooming down my street and like crazy. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's noise. And now he wants to open that patio again. And there's going to be, like you say, how loud does 20 people or 30 people can get? Plenty loud. I live 150 feet away from that place. It's horrific. I invite all of you. I wish I could invite all of you to come to my house when he was playing that music, and make sure you put down acoustic in there too, because Masters at the zoning board said acoustic music. It's not acoustic music, and he knows what the hell amplified music is. Okay. You know what amplified music is. You have to be stupid not to know what amplified music is. He's trying to nitpick what amplified music is. Amplified music is electronic guitars and speakers on the drums and everything else, and that's what he's doing. And if you give him that special use permit, it might be a year or 2 years, and he's going to be doing this again. And all these special things, he says 11 o'clock, and now he's even said Thursday. He's going to be open on Thursday nights. It's Fridays and Saturdays now, and now it's going up to Thursday. It's going to be, if you give him a special use permit, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And a couple of people here that live close, I've talked to them, and they're complaining about dogs barking. I don't know what they do at night that they can't hear him play, but they were complaining about the dogs barking during the day. So I don't know what's going on, but I live 150 feet away from there, and I went through hell for the last 2 years. I lived in the county city building at the city attorney's office, the building commissioner's office, code enforcement for the last year and a half, or 2 years, to try to get this thing straightened out. And thanks to Oliver Davis Jr. and Lenny.
You mean Henry? Henry Davis Jr.
Henry Davis Jr. We got this off to where we're at right now. And Lenny is not the only one that's complaining. I was complaining from the very start. And the only reason she got into it is because when she cut her tree down, that the music was going through, the tree was stopping the loud noise from them hearing it. Like I say, I'm all for that, but make sure that you can't hear that music outside that building, because and Master says there was no calls. I've called 6 times already since the Alcohol Beverage Commission's meeting about noise from that bar. And that's with the doors, he was supposed to have the doors closed, and you still can hear it. And it still shakes my windows. That's how loud he plays that music. I can't believe they're not deaf by now. I had one officer come to my house while watching Notre Dame football game, and...
Sir?
30 seconds, sir.
30 seconds.
I'm sorry, did I go over my time?
No, you still have 30 seconds.
Okay, like I said, it was so loud I couldn't hear the Notre Dame football game playing, and I had it full blast. That's how loud the music was. So, like I said, if you put that in
Sir,
the
your time
thing
is
where
up.
he can't hear that you can't hear the music outside that building, I'm fine with it. But
Sir?
no music and the people not talking on that deck.
Sir, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other, public portion is now closed. Mr. Masters and Mr. Berg, you have a 5-minute rebuttal. Mr. Varner will time you. Sir, yes. Mr. Brown, sir. Thank you.
I'm going to let Mr. Berg tell you a couple of things first, but let me just respond to something in that questioning that Councilman Davis had with the Assistant City Attorney. I think there was a date that was given that was wrong. The City Attorney said that the remediation agreement was in 2015. The timeline was, and by the way, you've got an email with the timeline from Ms. Kay that tells you all these things, because I've seen the emails you all get. But the remediation agreement was signed by Mr. Berg on May 19th of 2016, so a little more than a year ago. On June 4, there was an email from Lenny Kay to Derek Dieter, Kathy Farron, Oliver Davis, Mayor Pete, Scott Rutkowski, Crystal Bistro. You want me to keep going? You're all on it. Okay? And what she says is, on June 2, residents near the friendly confines received printouts on their front doors stating that the tavern would have music playing on the deck. Those were the notices given pursuant to that remediation agreement. That was June 2. By June 17, the lawsuit was filed. When I talk about the ink not being dry. So we signed an agreement saying you can have music on the deck, give notice to the people, and the next thing you know, we have a
Why don't you
lawsuit.
read the notice?
Please.
Now,
Right now, the rebuttal is only from Mr. Masters and Mr. Berg. No one else is allowed to talk. Thank you.
Mr. Berg, there was a statement made by Mr. Kevin Wooding, I believe, who, by the way, lives at 821 South Walnut, and so does Lenny Kay.
What difference does it make?
Well, I'm just telling you,
Sir.
it's two people from the same household that spoke up here. Said that the bar was on a 1-year probation. Mr. Berg, would you address that, please?
We've never been on a 1-year probation as far as the Alcohol Commission is concerned. They did come to the meeting, Lenny comes to the meeting, she comes to every meeting I have to go to. It's borderline harassment at this point. But she comes there and states her, so they said, well, you know what, you'll have another one coming up in a year, we'll see how things go. They did not put me on probation.
Have you had any liquor law violations at your bar?
No.
One other quick thing. Mr. Dovich, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, said if you put that in there about no noise outside, he's okay with it? If I understand him?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what we're working on. So, while the other discourse was going on, Mr. Furlake, I think we came to a conclusion, the agreement, let me see if I can read this, and you tell me if this is accurate. The commitment, paragraph 1, with regard to the music, will read, no music or amplified sound will be played or broadcast on, to, or from the outside deck or outside of the building premises. This includes, but is not limited to, music played and amplified sound from within the building premises with the intent to be heard outside of the building premises. Is that accurate? I mean, you want to...
Can I speak right now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. The only, was or, for that last.
Well, yeah, I changed it to
play.
and because I think that's more grammatically correct.
No, because it's either or. But, so or, that's the only thing different, but yes, that is correct.
Or.
That's the language that I will be proposing as an
We will
amendment.
put that in the commitment. I will have Mr. Berg sign it. Before I record it, I'll email it to Mr. Palmer to review.
Mr. Masters, for the benefit of the council, would you please read it one more time?
Sure.
I'll make a motion, then I'll read it.
That's fine. I want to hear Mr. Masters read it.
No music or amplified sound will be played or broadcast on, to, or from the outside deck or outside of the building premises. This includes, but is not limited to, music played or amplified sound from within the building premises with the intent to be heard outside of the building premises. I think we've covered all the interests that you had. No music or amplified sound on the deck, and no music inside being played to the outside. So I said, I'll draft it up, I'll send it to Mr. Palmer to look at before we, no?
No, I'm sorry.
it's
Sir,
done.
in the audience, there's no time for discussion
Back to
anymore.
you.
I was going to say, I'll send it to Mr. Palmer to proof it before we record it.
Okay.
Thank you all for your
You can
patience.
continue with your rebuttal.
No, I have nothing else to say unless Mr. Berg wants to say something else.
Yeah, a minute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the council, first of all, for hearing our rezoning, and also the zoning committee, which has already approved what we have asked for. I just don't want it to get to a point where we do everything we're supposed to, and a couple neighbors keep calling in, because it's reverse harassment almost the other way. So we are agreeing to do what we say we're going to do here, and we won't have any music on deck. We will close it down at 11 o'clock. As long as we stay within our bounds of what we're asking, we wish they would also stay within their bounds of what they do. And that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public portion is now closed. This is turned back to the council portion only. At this time, we will take comments only. No more questions to the city or Mr. Masters or Mr. Berg. And no comments from the audience, please. Is there any comments starting with the second district? You're good.
No, I have comments.
Oh, okay.
I want to actually thank everyone who's come out to speak again, to speak on this issue. I want to say, again, as part of comment.
Microphone, please.
Oh.
Closer.
just thanking everyone who came out to speak on this issue. I want to make it clear that it's really important that we do our best as council members, but as members of the public, to be able to have a debate about the issues without vilifying any one person or one particular organization or group of people. I think it takes a lot of courage when you are the only or one of a very few, especially when it kind of feels like you're going against the grain. So I just want to really appreciate everybody on either side who's felt bullied, who's felt unfairly treated, who's felt unheard, most specifically by the city administration and the people who are here, who are hired, who are being paid, who are elected to serve you. Because what I've heard consistently on both sides is that both sides have kind of sought relief from the city, and we've not really been able to come through. So I want to put that onus on the people who are responsible, and I believe it's us. I hope that no matter what's decided moving forward here, that the people in the neighborhood can come together, maybe have some conversations where you can kind of heal some of this division, and again move forward together in a way that is respectful of both sides' needs. As it relates to like the decision we have to make here tonight, to me, I think given the parameters that we have as council people in this quasi-judicial situation, it's pretty clear to me that my vote needs to be actually, I guess would be in favor of the special exception, simply because I believe that this is a place where we have to kind of start anew and move forward. And it's not about what someone has done in the past, what the establishment, whether they've broken rules or not. I think we have to do a better job in terms of city government on enforcement, and that's something we've struggled with here. We've made a lot of mistakes and given out different kinds of information, which has made it hard for both the business owner and I think for the people who are kind of struggling with the business in the neighborhood. So I'm going to suggest that we really work hard to make sure that moving forward, the business is doing what they've said in their commitments, because it feels to me that if Mr. Berg and the establishment actually adhere to the written commitments, that will allow everybody in the neighborhood to kind of be at peace and comfort. And I haven't heard someone, I think, saying that. So it's really important that we, I think, stay engaged, that we don't make this decision tonight and then like walk away and say, whatever's going on. I hope to plan to visit the establishment, wander around. I'll be there in the middle of the night. You never know when I'm coming. Because I think it's on all of us to make sure that we're supporting peace in the neighborhood, to make sure that everybody's getting along. So I hope we can all kind of get together and work this out, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. No, I'd just like to thank Ms. Preston for those words, and I really don't have anything to add to that. Thank you.
Ms. Broden.
Very well articulated, Regina. Thank you for those comments. I would concur that, this is the process where, I'll grab this one, I think it might be closer. This is the process, to try to amend if, something went wrong or went awry with the 2004 rezoning, is to allow the public to view this site, this specific use. Is it a right fit? Is it a right fit? Is it specific to that site? And I think of the 4 criteria that we're asked to evaluate, probably the second one that was enumerated tonight The proposed use will not injure or adversely affect the use of the adjacent area or property values therein. So it's very specific, who is being impacted and is it adverse. I think the commitments are going a long way. And when you make a commitment as a business owner on this property, and these are going beyond legally what's required, and I would agree. It's a matter of there's a stated effort here, and it's written down of that use, on that lot. So I guess I'm feeling that is accommodating the complaints. It's making specific effort to eliminate the adverse effect. We should be able, in the city of South Bend, in a mixed-use district, accommodate a place for individuals to go to a bar, to enjoy themselves, and it shouldn't and need not disturb, the overall peace of that neighborhood. So I would agree with Councilmember Preston that there needs to be work on all ends here. Enforcement, neighborliness of the folks coming and going, and also a higher degree of communication and collaboration within the neighborhood itself. So this is the process. Our parameters are very limited. I think the business is making some really large accommodations here to try to get this off on a better foot. I'm ignoring, because it's really not part of this record, we're looking at, and I'm going to just read something very specific from the BZA minutes. The question is whether or not the proposed land use is consistent with the district it's in, and whether or not if the impact on the surrounding community would be detrimental. The mixed-use district is established to allow for establishments such as this. The fact that this is a tavern makes it a controlled use and therefore a special exception. So the type of establishment being requested is considered and addressed in the zoning ordinance and the land use. So just kind of hone in on this. It is about use. The district was commercial. It's mixed use. We should be able to accommodate this. I particularly like the efforts that the owner has stated and the encumbrances he's putting on this going forward in history, to try to accommodate and bring about peace within the neighborhood.
Dr. Barnes.
Thank you. Well, cooperation is always going to be a two-way street, and we are constantly, not constantly, on more than one occasion in my years, the issue we've dealt with is, as was described, selective enforcement. Well, selective enforcement comes about because there are selective complaints. In other words, the residences of the organizations, the institutions, the businesses that for whatever reason don't generate any complaints aren't necessarily compliant. They just aren't generating any complaints. So the issue we find ourselves in are things like this, and we end up having to make a decision. The expanded use of the building apparently is a very subjective decision that Mr. Buelow had to make, and he did. It's entirely possible that this can end up in court. A judge might decide that the definition of expanded use is applied here is not appropriate, and we'll be right back with, what have you got? Well, you could have what people are complaining about right now, and that is music till after 11 or later, Who's going to enforce it? What is the selective enforcement going to be? I think that the only solution in cases like this where people find themselves in conflict is a negotiated settlement. This is a negotiated settlement. With the amendment as proposed, or the language with regard to that, there should be no music after 9 o'clock. It should be there should be no music broadcast or anything. I think it's a practical solution to a difficult problem. You don't have to be monitored. Thank you, Ms. Preston Williams, because you made that an important point of your comments. And then we have to allow our decision to be enforced to the extent it can by the administration. Who makes those decisions? We don't make enforcement decisions. We simply apply the laws, the ordinances, we know about it, and in this case find a solution. So I'm inclined to support this and then ask that everyone, including the gentleman, Mr. Berg, who's making the concessions, really live up to his statements with regards to wanting to be part of the neighborhood, wanting to run a good business, not running to, in his words, be harassed. On the other hand, the good people in the neighborhood want to know that they can live and enjoy the peace and quiet of their neighborhood. It takes a collaborative effort, not a winner and a loser. If we walk out of here and someone thinks there's a winner and somebody thinks they're a loser, then I'm afraid we failed, because the debate will go on. We'll just be back here under different circumstances with the same people in 2 years. Thank you.
Vice President Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the 6th district, we probably have the most bars than any other neighborhood. This particular bar, for my first part of my tenure here in the council, was in the 6th district, because that whole neighborhood, and then when we redistricted, that little part of it moved to the 2nd district. But to a concern that was raised earlier, does a resident have more impact than a business? In the 6th district, I have to listen to residents and to bars, because there's so many of them. I mean, I can go down one of our ones that's in question. People kept telling me about is on Indiana Avenue when they had their problems right there in Indiana, and will not name their name, but a lot of folk know who they were right off Walnut, and that was my number one complaint when they had their park. But they had to add a parking lot, and they had others. We didn't shut it down, but they added more things to help. So my complaints have gone down. Every now and then it gets interesting over there, but it's not. But I have to deal with bars all the time. Another one's coming in a few more weeks. So my concern is this, and this is first to the city administration. When these situations happen, because they will happen, I would, especially when you negotiate with attorneys regarding these things, I would have appreciated when that whole last piece of it was agreed to, that the council president and the zoning chair, I happen to be that, but whoever the zoning chair would be, would have gotten input when there was an agreement that was said, we're going to take this to the council. At that point, I believe that administration and the council should have been brought into it way ahead of time. Instead of us working out all these negotiations all on the email the last 2 weeks and all here, I think we could have done a better job to clear that up. And I think we need to prepare for that. So if the administration, with those who are working with building and zoning at this present time, at least for the rest of this year, and Mr. President, I'm the zoning person, we should not be getting at the last minute holding up things. It's not fair to both sides. It's not fair to us. So I think the city has to do that, especially given the fact that when a city situation and city departments have said that on multiple times there have been mistakes. I mean, when our city officials or city departments, who does what, and nobody's perfect, but when city situations where permits are given, then the mistakes are not. I mean, it said, oh no, we shouldn't have done that. Or we thought it was going to be music here, but then no, this is what we really meant. And the attorney the last time said there was interpretation for both. Well, when we write up agreements, let's make sure there's no interpretation for both. I appreciate what Mr. Furley did and what Mr. Masters did tonight and what our attorney did. We wanted to make sure that there was no interpretation on what we have submitted to be the substitute. We don't need to walk out here and say what we thought and have 3 different interpretations. That's not healthy. So, for those who advocate that we should say no on tonight, a lot of them, what I did not hear, they didn't acknowledge the fact that Mr. Burke has gone and had challenges with the city. He said, well, he's violated this and he's violated that. Okay, yes, he had some violations. We admit that. But they did not acknowledge that the city was a part of that, too. I mean, when you sit there and from this sitting from the outside looking in, even where I am, when the city has had those challenges, that's not good on that part. They did not, to me, they were saying with neighborhoods. There was a couple of y'all came from one side and said you did right there, and I appreciate that. But then you have the other two neighbors that came this way. So two neighbors are saying this, no, this is messing up. Other two neighbors are doing that. That puts us in an interesting quandary. When you have 2 + 2 here, then he said, okay, we got to come to what Mrs. Preston said, have to come to some resolution, some peaceful things. They were saying that this is the only means by which we have to make sure this is enforced by us voting no. That's not true. Number one, we already heard tonight that if there's not a neighborly or a friendly kind of understanding with this, the alcohol beverage groups are already looking at this whole thing for their 1 year thing. They will weigh in on this too. I heard that testimony tonight. If we don't like what's going on, of course, then we have to pressure the city administration. City administration, we know the police department, we know how to reach them, and everything else. They have to be accountable for that. So there are other ways that this can, it's not just tonight's vote. Those who are advocating for yes, again, we have to make sure that our city does better business. This is it. I mean, we cannot punish a business owner when we have made mistakes ourselves. I have issues with that. I have serious issues with the fact. If we had not had any issues and he had followed, we had told him here's the permits and these were not permits and we did everything else and there was no mistake on our parts, oh yeah, he's in trouble. But when we started getting into that, how can you punish somebody when we have mistakes? That from day one has been my concern. So, recognizing all of these different things, understand, I believe that we have to come together where you have a neighborhood of bars and residents living together, whether it's that part of Second, all of 6, on the west side, we have to learn how to live with next to bars and smoking bars or non-smoking bars or whatever. I'll say one last thing. We have to do all we can to support our bars. With all my support for the casino and everything else, our bars are terrified because they think that so much of the business is going to be headed on the southwest side to the casinos. And they are frightened out of their wits with the issue of the smoking ban and with all the other things. They think that a lot of their patrons are going to leave to go that way. And so, which may or may not happen. And so I am very cautious about putting too much on our bars right now when we've already put enough from this council. So I will be voting to support.
Mr. Gordy.
Real briefly, I would just like to thank both Attorney Masters and Attorney Elliot Anderson for the information they provided us to help us make an informed decision. I think all of the things you said were cogent, complete, and very informative. I'd also like to thank the people who came here tonight to speak either for or against. That helps us make an informed decision. And finally, our attorney, Mr. Palmer, and Councilmember Furlick have arrived at language that is found acceptable. At the end of this long evening, or nearing the end of this issue anyway, I'd like to, that's all I wanted to say.
Can I make a motion just to amend? Just to amend?
Let's do comments and then we'll do the amendment and then we'll go from there.
Sure. I'll just say thank you to everyone for coming, both in favor and in opposition. Also say thank you to the city for their handling of this matter. I think you've done a fine job. You know, the big thing to consider here is if in the lawsuit, the friendly confines prevails, they will have the ability to use the deck any way they want, play music, have people out there until 3 a.m., and that might not be the best compromise for the neighborhood. So I do think that the language in the written commitments provides a compromise, provides protection for the neighbors, and most importantly, you know, I'll be supporting this, and if this does go through, again, Mr. Berg would encourage you and all your patrons, you know, be be good neighbors, because I'm not saying you haven't in the past, but please be good neighbors to everyone, whether you're in the bar, on the deck, or whether you're leaving the bar. Just continue to encourage everyone and yourself to just continue being good neighbors.
Ms. White?
Yes, I would like to say I appreciate, I believe as Council Member Davis asking our attorney to outline the standards by which we as a council, that the work or the charge that was before us in terms of looking at the standards, in terms of looking at the bill that we have taken probably almost an hour and a half, which is time well spent. Would like to thank those who were in favor and those who were in opposition. I think it's very clear that some steps were mishandled, but nevertheless, the charge before this council had to align with those standards that were clearly set before us. In terms of enforcement, that has always been a concern that I've had as we begin to look at quality of life ordinance. This is one from my perspective. Clearly, we don't make the enforcement decisions, but I think that we have a responsibility to ensure as we move forward that we have a mechanism in place where this council can get feedback in regards to any concerns that may arise. We'd like to thank the petitioner and the attorneys for working collaboratively together to come up with a written agreement. I think that those written agreements should give some sense of continuity in regards to the friendly confines in regards to the deck, in regards to the hours in which the deck will be open, but most importantly, in terms of the music that will not be part of the deck. Again, it's important that we, as a council, that we adhere to the statutes that's before us. Again, everyone that lives within the neighborhood is a give and take. I think it's important that the business owner as well as the neighbors, that you have opportunity to come together. I think it would be nice to have a meet and greet in the business, and just to really sit down and talk and to ensure that as we move forward that there's a sense that we're all in this together, win or lose. No one is losing, no one is winning. It's what is best for the neighborhood. So again, I will be supporting the bill that's before us.
Thank you. And finally, I'll make my comments fairly brief. 7 years I've been on council, and over 27 years in international business. I'm pro-business, but I've been on council. I represent First District, where quality of life issues have been a priority, and I've been consistent with those priorities. The big thing with zoning with me is usually buffers. What are the buffers between businesses, neighborhoods, or anything else that comes up in special exception? It's really hard to accept this type of buffer, which is noise, which is very hard. Mr. Berg, I think you mean well. You bought a business that had a certain market and a certain programming niche within the community that worked quite well for years and years and years. And that was the Dunham Inn, and now it's changed to Friendly Confines, which is a totally different marketing scheme. And we've seen that from 2014, I think November 7th, 2014 on, how that marketing's changed in pushing the limits of the city, the neighborhood, and such. But with that in mind, there's 4 criteria for which we make our decisions. And I believe going from 18 parking spots to 0 is adversely affects the neighborhood. I also believe the noise, like I said earlier, one person talking on a deck is one thing. When you get 1 to 20 people talking on a deck, it's totally different. And there's no commitment, no rule that says everybody on the deck needs to whisper, which we know that's not realistic, and which is not going to be held accountable and can be enforced in any way. My concern is 11 o'clock. If it was 9 o'clock, I think it would be a different circumstance with me, because 9 o'clock is, when the noise ordinance kicks in, and that would ensure me a more robust commitment that, okay, 9 o'clock, we all need to go inside. And that might not be acceptable for that business. You almost double your revenue stream having a back deck, going from 33 indoor to extra 20 outside. I get that. I understand that. But when it comes down to it, I look at 2 of the 4 criteria. I think this exception, the 18 to 0, and even the commitment of no music, which is one thing, but having up to 20 people outside talking on a deck up until 11 o'clock is really an issue. And I'm going to side towards the residents, and I'm going to side within quality of life issues that we see within the city. We're not saying that the bar needs to shut down. I think the Dunham Inn was there for a long, long time, being an indoor, kind of quiet little place that did well in business. And I expect you're doing well in business not having that on the outside right now. I do agree that everybody should get along and everybody should work very hard to be good neighbors. I hung out in a nice little bar in the Italian section of St. Louis called Milo's. Go there sometime. We had very well influential Italian neighbors who would come down and say when the noise was too loud. But it was agreement. So I believe that this is adversely affecting into the criteria. I will turn it back to Kevin Furlick for his motion for amendment.
Sure. Would like to make a motion to amend the first commitment to read, no music or amplified sound will be played or broadcast on, to, or from the outside deck or outside of the building premises. This includes, but is not limited to, music played or amplified sound from within the building premises with the intent to be heard outside the building premises. That's a motion.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll make a motion to pass, or sorry, to adopt as amended.
Second it.
Ms. Fowler, roll call on, God, where are we? 1737.
1737. 1737. Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty.
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton.
Aye.
Councilmember Varner.
Aye.
Council President Scott.
Nay.
8 ayes.
Thank you. We still have more meetings to attend to. Ms. Fowler, would you please give reading to 1740? And those leaving, if you just be quiet as you go out, so we can continue business and we can get out of here. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Can we take a 30-minute break?
No.
No, okay, y'all good?
Come on.
All right, let's go. All right, let's keep on rolling.
Ms. Fowler.
All right. 1740. A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend supporting Solarize South Bend as a clean energy initiative.
Okay, I got you.
Is there a committee report?
Utilities Committee had a public hearing on 1740 this afternoon. Council favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
Yeah, Mike Keene from 1012 Riverside Drive, South Bend, Indiana. We would like to recommend council approval of the resolution in support of Solarize. Solarize is a community-driven educational initiative to help the residents be able to install solar on their houses or their buildings. And what we're doing is we're trying to be able to work together to bundle those residents together, so rather than having to negotiate one-on-one with solar companies, we can get them together and get the same kind of discount that a large solar installation would do. We believe that this will help support our community as it moves towards becoming an innovative city, taking advantage of new jobs that are being offered in renewables and emerging economy, and supporting our community and the capacity of our community to help create new industry and support jobs.
Thank you. Therese, anything you want to add quickly?
Therese Durrell, Director of the Sustainability Office, Public Works, 13th floor of this building.
I just want to add that this is a community-led initiative with no financial investment or risk adopted by the city. And I want to say that I have professionally been extraordinarily impressed with our volunteer steering committee who brought this program to the South Bend area to make it more affordable, easier, and faster for South Bend residents to invest in solar panels. So I'm very grateful for the work of the steering committee, and it's a great example of the responsibility for sustainability being spread throughout the community.
Thank you. Council, any comments or questions at this time for the presenters? Nope? Great. We'll open up the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of 1740, please come to the podium. Seeing none. No? Yes? Name and address, sir.
Victor Myers, 336 West Navarre, South Bend. I speak as a volunteer and active in the Solarize South Bend effort, and I'm pleased with the quality of the volunteer effort, and very appreciative of the support of the city. So should you decide to approve this resolution, I think it goes a long way toward endorsing a commitment by residents to transition from fossil fuels, at least diminish the use and dependence on them, toward a more friendlier environmental solution for the future.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 1740, please come to the podium. Seeing none, turn it back to council.
Move for the adoption.
Second.
Ms. Fowler, roll call, please.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Broden?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We will now move to first readings.
Oh.
Yeah, we do need a continuation.
Motion to continue bill number 1741.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Did I need to be specific with that date, or did I not?
No, indefinitely.
Cool, I'm a piece.
Thank you. First readings. Ms. Fowler, could you give first reading to 4517?
4517, first reading on an ordinance to vacate the following described property. The first north-south alley west of Laurel Street, running from the south from Jefferson Boulevard to First East-West Alley, and north from Jefferson Boulevard to First East-West/West Alley.
Thank you. May I entertain a motion to send this to Public Works and Property Vacation for 814?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. First, Ms. Fowler, 4617.
4617, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 13, Article 5, Section 13.5-75.5 of the South Bend Municipal Code to add dealing in a synthetic drug lookalike substance to the list of prohibited activities constituting a disorderly house.
Entertain a motion to send to Health and Public Safety for 814.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Any unfinished business?
Not unfinished, but I just want to thank you, President Scott, and the help that the clerk's office gave me. I presented at the National Association of Black Social Work Conference in Indianapolis. I'll send you an update, but you helped to finance that through. They wanted to talk about city government and our role in advocating, so I appreciate that. Had a good
Thanks.
time in Indianapolis.
Next council meeting, you give a quick report?
Yeah, I can
Thank you,
send it
sir.
to you. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anything else? New business?
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
I, along with Councilwoman Karen White, will be working on a resolution to come before the council next meeting to talk about the need of us putting into, at least encourage the administration to put into some funding regarding the lead problem that we're having in our city. And so we'd like to bring a resolution. We'll be sharing that with you all very soon.
Okay,
I'd like to work with our attorney with that and putting something together with
I
that.
would like to have a conversation with you guys on that too.
I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Same health and
So this whole
public
council.
The whole
Yeah, right, the whole council.
Yeah,
Bring
we just
them
talked this afternoon, so the whole council would like to bring, that's why I bring it to you tonight.
We might have a public meeting on that then.
I think, I
Go for
probably
it.
would suggest that we should have a broader discussion as we
Yep.
look at it, because in light of the fact that funding was not approved through the HUD grant and the impact, and we cannot not address this issue.
Correct.
And so again, I just think that has to have a much broader discussion. A resolution just one part of it,
Yeah.
but clearly the whole council would like to
Weigh in.
so I would say we need to sketch a
I'm
special
open.
meeting.
Under health and public safety.
That is fine.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And
Thank
there's
you.
some key individuals that we probably would want to be part of
Mhm.
that discussion. They've been working, gathering information as well. So
That's
we'll
cool.
email you those names.
So recommendations to Joe Broden on people, times, and agenda items.
That's
Sound
good with me.
Maybe by
Just
Friday?
make sure it is not on August the 3rd.
No, but by Friday? By Friday, if you could. We'll send out an email on that.
Okay.
Okay.
New business?
Yes?
Is this where we would announce the committee meeting coming up?
Yes, you can.
We have a standing meeting on the first Wednesday for our Community Relations Committee, and we will be having one August 2nd, 6 o'clock. We're looking for an off-site location, somewhere in the neighborhood. We want to be able to talk, this topic will be, one of the main topics will be housing needs, and we'd like to invite residents to come and share, some of their experiences or needs with home repair in the community. So,
Ms. Preston, would you please work with the clerk's office so we have technology for recording
yes.
and any ADA compliance for hearing or communication as well as physical, and also work with clerk's office on security.
All right.
All right. Anything else under new business? With that, we will open it up to privilege of the floor. Seems that we got a good group. Please line up. This is the time when individuals who wish to address the council must state their name and residential address. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes only. The maximum time limit for this portion is 30 minutes. Individuals may address only issues which are in the city's jurisdiction. Individuals shall not be permitted to address topics which the council heard on the agenda tonight. From that, I'll ask Dave Varner to keep our time. You've been bumped, Gavin. He's been doing a great job. 3 minutes. Go ahead. State your name and address.
Samuel Brown, 222 East Navarre Street, City of South Bend. I'm out of Worcester Group, Citizens United. My daughter went out to go see about her kids because she had a long night. Donald Crumpler was sitting next to me and accosted my daughter in the hall. Got in a place called Oasis. I really don't understand that. Her mother's white, her daddy's black, and she's mixed. So I went to this address. She told the police officer, talk to him right there. Out in the hall. That's why I rushed out the hall to see about my child. You gotta let Donald Trump know, you gotta walk lightly, because I love that one. Okay, my issue with the council in 1701, Ironwood, they have some issues up there that affecting our community. It's a bar and a restaurant, and a lot of the patrons up there is complaining about the large crowds, the traffic jams and everything. I went up to the day, but it was closed. As soon as I get with the owner, we're going to see what we can do about that. The other problem is the East Side Reunion. When you have a large group of people that's celebrating a certain thing in the city park, the East Side, you have a crowd. When the crowd disperses, you get gunfire. And we're concerned about that. And I think that issue should be addressed. It's a city park. Patrons got a reasonable right to come down parks and feel safe. And I think these issues should be addressed. I'm going to get more information on it. I'm going to get back with the people where the park, district that park is in, because we shouldn't have that type of stuff in South Bend. It's up to you leaders up there to make sure this is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address, sir.
Don Dewich, 2015 Peachtree Lane. I share a backyard boundary with the church property, the former church property that's being developed between off of Ironwood and Ironwood Rosemary. We've discussed it before. Just want to update the council on what's happened since we met back on May 22nd. The Common Council heard the initial site plan from the developer. At that time, the council, I compliment you for recognizing that not a single person in the neighborhood in support of that site plan. They suspended all discussion, no decisions were made. Basically, the developer was given a directive and asked to do three things. One, meet with the neighbors and invite the council, those that were interested. Basically, listen, take the input from the neighbors, input that into a new revised site plan, specifically addressing the concerns of the neighbors of traffic and the fact that there was no street parking in their plan, and then return to the council with a revised plan in 3 weeks. Well, that was 9 weeks ago. As much as the neighbors were anxiously awaiting that meeting, we are still waiting. But the developer hasn't been idle. He's been actually very busy. Really, with total disregard to that directive, he's gone ahead and clear-cut the property of every piece of vegetation, cut down all the big trees, the buildings are gone. It's basically a complete demolished site. You know, really, it was in total disregard for the directive. We feel that the developer acted with arrogance and disrespect for the council for their directive and ignoring that. This all done was in spite of the fact that they did not have an approved plan, and the fact that the Planning Commission in their report to the council indicated, and I quote them, they recommended that, quote, the tall trees on the property be retained to the greatest extent possible. The council may well have made that a requirement of an approved plan, but it's too late. When we challenged the developer, we didn't challenge the developer, we saw the construction workers, we said, what is going on? And they said, it's our property, we can do what we want with it. And in my opinion, that reckless action by the developer was basically, you know, taking away what we were trying to say, basically breaking down the spirit of the neighborhood. You know, it also supports the comment that I made when I spoke at that May council meeting. And I said it's really sad, and the only selling point the developer has
30
in the neighborhood
seconds,
is that it could be worse.
30 seconds.
It could be worse, and he certainly proved that to be true. You know, he's taken the most beautiful property in our neighborhood and turned it into an eyesore. I feel there should be consequences for those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address, please.
Tom Slayson, 1926 Dorwood Drive, speaking on the same subject. And beg the council's patience, I have some prepared statements, a little bit redundant for what he said, but I'll get through it quickly. I'm a 26-year resident of the Rosemary and Dorwood Drive neighborhood and a member of the neighborhood association, and I, along with nearly all my neighbors, was shocked and saddened by the inappropriate removal of every single tree in that development area. Had they even left several of the healthy trees standing, which was less than the mandate for the neighborhood association, and what the developer agreed to in principle, it would have been a breach of trust. By fraudulently declaring all the trees diseased, fraudulently declaring them thus, clearly they were not, and then removing them without any approval, it was an abomination to the natural beauty of this area, and a slap in the face of all interested parties. Aside from the fact that this action was unnecessary, ignored the directive from this very council to meet with us, the neighborhood association, before modifying the plan, and was a reckless and damaging destruction that can never be repaired, it clearly shows the disregard that this developer has for the expressed requests and intentions of both our neighborhood and the Common Council. There's nothing about this development whatsoever that blends with our neighborhood. And in spite of the developer's specious claims, it certainly appears that it will instead detract from the character and ambience that we enjoy today, and much more we used to enjoy before they repel the trees out. In summary, the developer made a gamble by buying a property that was zoned as single-family one, apparently with the assumption that the neighborhood neighbors in the Common Council would simply get out of his way, rubber stamp his rezoning and variance petitions, and allow him to proceed without regard to the needs and concerns of his future neighborhood. As a neighborhood association, we are appalled at the audacity these actions demonstrate. In conclusion, we hope the council is equally appalled at the lack of regard the developer has demonstrated toward the opinions of both our neighborhood and the authority of your actions, by his actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
Kevin Dreyer, 1905 Doorwood Drive. I know we've been here for a long time. The fact that we sat here without an agenda item and waited through all of that should indicate how much we feel about this issue and how determined we are to follow through as much as we possibly can. The only direct contact that I'm aware of that has happened with the developer was initiated by one of the members of our group who reached out and said, we had no idea the church was coming down this fast. One of the proposals we wanted to discuss was whether we could retain some of the bricks from the building to build a signpost or a fence or somehow indicate our pride in our neighborhood. The response was, sorry, it's going to cost too much. We can't do that. Costs have been preeminent in every conversation. Some of the things that we have seen posted recently have indicated that the new tactic is that they are going to offer to infill in a vacant lot to jump on the back of the initiative of building new housing in vacant areas. A vacant area that they themselves created. Reminds me of the old Yiddish joke, what's the definition of chutzpah? It's a man on trial for killing his parents, throwing himself at the mercy of the courts because he's an orphan. As I was leaving the house, my wife gave me one last thing to read to you all. Her eye was caught by an obituary that was in today of a Robert P. McIntosh, who was a very, very well-known ecologist, historian of ecology. A memorable quote of Max is, "A decision to cut a 200-year-old oak tree should not be taken lightly." Far too much has been taken lightly in this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, name and address.
Hi, Lynn Wosaka, 128 East North Shore Drive, South Bend, 46617, and the newest member of the Animal Control Commission. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here mostly because, well, first of all, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'll try to make this a little shorter than the noisy deck people. But I'm here to ask you for your help with something. I just wanted to go on record to make you aware of a problem. I live on East North Shore Drive, which is the light at the bridge at 31 Redmond Memorial right there, going up the hill. And for years, this problem has existed with drainage out of the neighborhood's Harder Heights neighborhood down our street, which becomes a river, and it's just gotten to a tipping point now where it's wiping out yards, it's wiping out sidewalks, it's just creating a lot of havoc. And Ms. Broden and I have talked extensively about this. She came out, looked at it herself, which I really appreciated. I've had emails to the mayor and to the city and to Mr. Horvath since March, and this is just becoming a problem where it's just every time there's a rainstorm, it just gets visibly worse. The engineer was out, city engineer Tara Wygand, and looked at the plans and so forth and decided that the problem was that when Harder Heights was built, appropriate drainage was never put in there. So what happens is all that water comes out of Harder Heights, down the street. The street is slanted such that it's on our side of the street, so we get these torrential rivers. I have video of what's going on down there. So at the moment, we have a couple of foot-deep holes, a couple we're trying to fill in with rocks. That's worthless. But we already had one person fall a couple of days ago while she was jogging, and these holes, I'm not exaggerating, they're this deep. And I'm just worried about a lawsuit, and I feel like the problem in my mind is, and in addition to the fact that the curbs are also washed away, this is a main thoroughfare between downtown and Notre Dame for the Madison Center kids that walk, Madison school kids that walk up and down right there. My neighbors, none of them could be here with me tonight, but I have a lot of Notre Dame faculty neighbors around me that are going to send emails and just, express their point of view about all
30
this.
seconds, ma'am.
My problem is that I don't want us to put form over function. All the beautification in town is incredible, I love it, but when we have this much infrastructure problem, and especially something that's a flaw in the infrastructure. I don't feel it's right for the residents to have to pay fortunes of money to fix that kind of a problem. And I need your help, and thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
Sharon Benicki, 3822 Ford Street. A couple months ago, I was here and implored of the council to go home, take your council salary, crunch the numbers, and see if you could live on it. It was after one of the rate increases that everybody's always only $1, it's only $2. I don't know how many of you have done it, but I can look at this council and wonder how many of you have a household income of less than $100,000. How many have less than a $50,000 household income? You guys make more than a person working full-time making $8.50 an hour to be on the council. So when you look at these dollars and $2 there, it's not much to you because many of you have the luxury of donating your money away to whatever you want. But the hard-working backbone of this city doesn't have that luxury. We don't have the extra cash laying around to cover $1 or $2. And at budget time, when you've got your exclusive people pulling double-digit raises, while your rank and file doesn't even pull a one-digit raise, shame on you. Remember that when you sit down at the table. Rank and file got 0.75%, the Teamster workers. And yet their upper echelon was pulling double digits. How many city workers are pulling in over $100,000 a year? And yet, just tonight, you paid out or approved $100,000 for a study. How many studies do we have to pay for when we have such expertise around? Lippert Industries, what can I say about that? Why did they sneak out into Mishawaka in the middle of the night? Where was somebody to be watching them and know that they were even looking? The city went out and bought the equipment to lease to them at a loss to entice that business here. 2 years later, they're going. What happens to this equipment that the city bought and is leasing to them at a loss? Where will that property end up? And I know Oliver saw it because I pointed it out to him. But you might want to go on Facebook and see what South Bend defines news as. Because when it was asked, why is it news that the North Shore Triangle is having break-ins, yet it happens on the west side all the time, the response was, news is something that's out of the ordinary. So obviously crime is on the ordinary and to be expected on the west side.
Sharon, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Goodchild, you better get up there.
I hear you. I won't miss it this time.
No waiting.
Hey, I got good news. Good news.
Name and address.
Oh, Mr. Goodchild, I like that. Ron Goodchild, 837 South 24th Street, right, River Park. And as you can see, we love River Park. And you can see 30 foot. And as you can see, eagles with their nests. And I love that comment by that gentleman saying, why do they cut down those 200-year-old trees? And we preserve them. And you know what? I was sitting right next to Aaron Perry tonight. He says, Rod, how's it going? I says, hey, we got a tree sitting right on the fence. And when MLK, Martin Luther King, came to Chicago, calls up the Mayor Daley, can you help me? Too busy. Calls up the Archbishop, Cardinal, Chicago, can you help me come out and we have our march? No, I'm too busy. Calls up Ted, what time do you want me? Some of you were there at that talk when we got the two people hands together. Both Ted, Father Hesburgh, Martin Luther King. Tremendous. So I went afterwards and talked to Father Jenkins, and you say, he's the president. I says, my parents were married. Father Sheedy, he says, that's my mentor. I says, well, I'm trying to get a tree here, and he says, stay the course.
Saw Tim Romer. I says, we marched and walked in so many different events trying to get that stay the course. Went to see my other friend, Steve Litke. You might remember, he was former mayor. I says, boy, I need some help. I got a tree, it's 50 foot, and it's sitting by a fence. Stay the course! I'm back again. Still there, but I got the great news. Aaron says, what can I help you with? I says, I got a tree, 50 foot. He says, you go see the head of Rodriguez, John. And I says, you know, they gave me this card. It was the 1st of spring. It's going to guaranteed be done by our March. Well, they says, oh, Rod, it's the 3rd weekend, 3rd Saturday in July was your March. This is the 4th. You know, it was last week. Patrick Sherman, he's the engineer. He's the person that said, you get with him. I've called. AOL. SOL, I was, but
30 seconds, Mr.
my
Goodchild.
point is that Gavin, you and Aaron are close. I know the godfather of the trees are John Gordy. I know
Microphone, please.
that Dr. Varner has been there 100% all along. I know Randy said he'd get hold of Aaron and speak to him. I just need, we got the tree there. It's been there over a year.
Mr. Goodchild, your time is up.
Help, it's time.
Thank
It's
you.
time. It's time.
That's
All
the
right.
same as Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Godfather.
Godfather trees.
John. I wonder why they call it Sequoia.
You do oak trees, you do buckeyes. Thank you, Graham. Pleasure.
Those are all signed.
You're supposed to keep that, right? It's one of the letters that they submitted. Hey.
I sent it to her.
I know.
They're done.
Thank you. Aaron said he was going to talk to John about it. He's going to say John.
Thanks very much. What's that?
And so whenever it was not like.
Well, you did really good.
Keep that tree off, put it in the ground, and we'll have it guaranteed over the winter, when we're in a down season.
What did Aaron tell you?
Giant.
He said tonight, Steve, Rodriguez,
Doesn't have anything to do with Steve's
Because I talked to him, he said he was going to talk to John, and he said he would take care of that for you. We'll follow up.
Make sure I got it off, but.
But he said that, you know, get
Yeah.
I've had John Rodriguez, card that I gave you, the engineer that was supposed to get with me, I called him because of time.
And I thought Aaron told me John Martinez, he was going to talk to
He
him.
put it into that Sherman. He said,
Okay.
get Sherman,
John
Sherman's
Martinez.
engineer.
Because they have to-
Martinez said,
Martinez said that he's just waiting for the okay from the engineer.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, because
Engineer might
I
have
talked to
passed
Aaron right
away.
after.
But
I talked to Aaron right after we talked that night. I thought it was maybe already that day. So.
But nobody has ever said a word to me, and the engineers never talked to me, and I